Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday, July 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Palo Alto Architectural
Recording
Review
in
Board.
progress.
There we go. Can we please get a roll call?
Yes. Chair Rosenberg,
Present.
Vice Chair Chen,
Present.
Board Member Adcock,
Present.
Board Member Hirsch,
Present.
welcoming Board Member Georgiarth.
Present.
We have quorum.
I'd like to extend a warm welcome to newest board member Martin Georgia. Welcome. We're really pleased to have you here and we look forward to serving with you. So, all right, public comment. Members of the public may speak to an item not on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes to speak. If you have comments to make for an agendized item, you'll have time for that later in the hearing. So if there's any public speaker cards or any raised hands on Zoom.
Through the chair, we received no public comment cards and there's no raised hands on Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So public comment section is closed. Agenda items, agenda changes, additions, and deletions.
None today.
Thank you, Claire. All right, we'll move into city official reports. Oh, sorry, really quickly. On the agenda changes, additions, and deletions, I just did want to note that the approval of minutes did not have a number next to it, but it is an agendized item. We're going to just be referring to it as item number 4. Just housekeeping because there was no number next to it.
And it has been updated on the online version of the agenda and packet.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. So moving on to city official reports now.
Thank you. Give me just one moment. Good morning, board members. Claire Raybold, Planning Manager. I'm pinch hitting for Stephen today, who is out of the office currently. Just a quick item on the upcoming agenda. We'll have Cedar and Sage will return to us. Coverly Community Center will hold a study session. And afterwards, there will be an ad hoc for 3256 El Camino Real. I just realized I do need to double check who was assigned to that ad hoc committee, but I'll make sure that's noted so board members are aware. There are a couple of absences at the next meeting. So if we do need to reassign based on that ad hoc, I'll reach out to the chair to coordinate that. There will be 2 absences for 717. Board member Adcock and board member Georgiarth have planned absences that day. I do want to note we did move the chair and vice chair elections were originally planned for that day, but because we'll have 2 board members out, we've moved that to the 8/7 hearing. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, so nothing exciting, not nothing exciting, but nothing of note that we need to discuss in terms of the upcoming projects that have been filed, new filed projects.
Yeah, no new projects have been filed since that last hearing.
Perfect, okay.
Of note.
All right, great, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the action items at this time. So we're gonna move on to action item number 2, public hearing quasi judicial for 975 Page Mill Road. Recommendation on applicant's request for major architectural review to allow facade modifications to an existing 50,527 square foot office building and a design enhancement exception to allow for fin sunshades to encroach approximately 1 foot into a special setback on both Hanson Way and Page Mill Road. All right, and with that, I will hand it over to planner Christina.
Good morning, everybody. I am joining us this meeting remotely. So I'm here today to present this project. Let me share my screen with you. Second. My name is Christina Dobkevichus. I'm an associate planner with the city. And I'm presenting a major architecture review project at 975 Page Mill Avenue. The proposed project includes a request for the major architecture review to remodel an existing office building. It also requests a design enhancement exception, and I will go over the details in the next slides. The project site is located at the intersection of Page Mill and Hanson Way within the Stanford Research Park area at 975 and 925 Page Mill Road. There are two existing buildings. Both buildings were constructed together in 1997, but there are no changes proposed for the building next to it, the larger one at 925 Page Mill Road. The applicant requests an approval for modifications to an existing 50,527 square foot office building and also associated surface parking lot located between the structures, those two existing structures. As part of the project, the following permits were requested. It was the architectural review for exterior changes as well as floor area reconfiguration. The design enhancement exception for architectural features to encroach into the special setback, 50-foot special setback along Hanson Way and Page Mill Road frontages, as well as conditional use permit for the office to eating and drinking service conversion on the ground floor of the existing building together with the alcohol service use. A little bit about the existing structure as well as the proposed exterior changes. The existing structure consists of the two-story concrete tilt-up panels with punched window openings and also setback green tinted glazing on the most of the facades. The primary entry facade facing the Page Mill Road parking lot features a green tinted and white spandrel glass curtain wall system above a ground floor arcade with the multiple entry doors. There's also a large paved plaza with small ginkgo trees that separates the parking lot from the building entrance. As part of the architectural configuration, the previously clipped entry corner facing Page Mill Road will be infilled by relocating and realigning the structural bay closest to 925 Page Mill Road building at the back. The new exterior will be composed primarily of large format of white terracotta panels with varying vertical rib projections. Zinc-clad panels will also complement these surfaces and be used at secondary entrances and to accent the window pairings across the elevation. As part of the proposal, the new walking paths, outdoor seating, and gathering areas are proposed. The existing entry plaza will be redeveloped to provide ADA accessible parking, delivery access, and staircases. The design enhancement exception is requested as part of this project. The combination of dual setbacks along Page Mill and Hanson Way and the constraints associated with adaptive reuse presents a condition that's not commonly found elsewhere in the district. So these unique circumstances justify the minor encroachments as part of the broader effort to achieve a high-quality contemporary design. Because the proposed projections are modest in scale and do not increase the usable floor area, they're located well above the pedestrian level, and they present no impact to visibility or access to the site. The applicant has requested a design enhancement exception for the following, which is the zinc composite shadow boxes and also vertical sunshades located at both first and second floor of the building. There are some stairs and associated handrails that also are proposed to encroach into the special setback along both Page Mill Road and also Hanson Way. The project also includes conversion of 3,769 square feet of the existing office space to an eating and drinking use on the ground floor, the cafe use, which the applicant states is intended to serve employees within the building and the broader Stanford Research Park areas. The proposed cafe space is permitted through the requested conditional use permit and is consistent with the Research Park land use designation. A number of existing parking spaces on the project site is currently located within an approved landscape reserve area that was originally approved under the 1997 architectural review approval action for the building at 925 Page Mill Road. The project removes 43 substandard compact parking spaces and narrow drive aisles that are currently located in the landscape reserve and proposes 33 code compliant spaces within as well with the wider drive aisles on the site as well. Staff finds that the project is mostly in conformance with architecture review, conditional use, and design enhancement exception findings. Staff recommends that Architectural Review Board recommend an approval of the project with the condition that the plans be modified to remove the stair, wall, and shade structure encroachments into the required special setbacks on both Page Mill and Hanson Way. Staff finds that the project is consistent with relevant plans, policies, and regulations adopted by the city and recommends that the ARB recommend an approval of the project with selected modifications to the Director and Planning of Development Services. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I did realize that we skipped over disclosures, so I am going to ask that the ARB members speak to any disclosures that we have at this time. So we'll start with Board Member Adcock. And if you have visited the site.
I have visited the site. The only thing I noticed, which is shown on the drawings but was not so apparent, is there's a bus stop right on the street that seems to have more of a significant presence than what I could discern from the drawings.
Thank you.
I visited the site yesterday and no other disclosures.
Visited the site and I have nothing to disclose.
I have visited the site and nothing to disclose.
I visited the site and also no disclosures other than that.
Okay, thank you guys. At this time, if we have any questions for staff in particular, now would be the time for ARB members to ask it. We will have the following with the public comments and questions with them as well. But at this time, if there's any direct questions for staff from ARB. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, is there a sample board, by the way, for materials?
Do we have any?
Yeah, we have it here.
Okay.
It's being passed around right now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
You go ahead.
You want to go first?
Okay, thanks. I do have a question. Can the staff give us more context about the special setback for this project, the 50 feet special project? As one of the recommendation is to revise the low wall and the stairs within the 50 feet setback. So what's this setback for? And is there any special, like what's the intent for the special setback?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry.
Claire,
Go ahead, Christina. Yeah.
so the special setback is there for the future redevelopment of, if say the city decides to add additional bike lanes, to kind of keep that area clear of any permanent structures. And the setback applies on both Page Mill Road and Hanson Way. So the entire corner of the existing building is restricted by the special setback on both sides, both frontages.
Okay, so, but the hardscape is allowed. It's only like the low wall and the stairs. It's most likely, it's not encouraged. Is it correct?
Yes, that was our recommendation in the staff report. We are, the existing building currently has a small amount of paving and stairs along Hanson Way, but there is nothing encroaching along the Page Mill Road frontage. And so the new design proposes additional further encroachments along Hanson Way with the plaza walls, like a concrete walls of 3 feet tall with umbrellas and tables and chairs. So that was the biggest encroachment along Hanson Way. Along Page Mill Road, there are some minor steps going off that ADA accessible ramp.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Actually, my question was kind of in the similar line of the setback, and is along Hanson Way, for instance, there's already a bike lane, and you did mention it might be for something like that. Has there been any other projects like along these secondary streets? I can understand for Page Mill, which is a major thoroughfare. Hanson Way is kind of a secondary street. Is that typically held at 50 feet all the way around at both Hanson and what's the next street down from there? I forget.
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
yeah, that area in Hanson Way all has a 50-foot setback requirement.
Christina, along those lines, have any exceptions been approved for those properties? For other properties on Hanson Way?
Not that I am aware of. I have not encountered any projects that do have encroachments into Page Mill Road.
No, Hanson Way was the
Oh,
question.
Hanson Way. I am not familiar with any. Claire, would you like to chime in?
I'm just trying to think. There are existing facilities that have some, they weren't exceptions, but they were, built long ago. So there are like some places that have parking.
Like existing
parking lots,
non-conformings?
Existing non-conforming, but I'm not aware of any exceptions that have been granted, but.
In addition, so Jennifer, Assistant Director, the one other exception that I'm aware of is on the corner with El Camino Real. There is a hotel there that was allowed to encroach, but that was actually done through a formal process, including a note on the zoning map, not just a individual project kind of design exception. It was something that was actually changing the rules for that parcel.
What was their encroachment, if you don't mind?
That, I believe, was for the building itself.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I believe that site is so small that if you had a 50-foot setback, you couldn't even put a building on that. So that's likely why that exception was granted.
So is it required to have an exception if you have landscape changes as are being shown here? And the use issue of it as well?
So any improvements that would go, that are not landscaping, that would, not be at grade level, any structures that you're putting into the setback. So the stairs extend upward, and the umbrellas that were proposed were, it appeared to be permanent, umbrellas that would be placed in, and the wall, was like a concrete kind of wall that would be built in. So all of those are, permanent structures being placed within the setback. So all of those would would require an exception. They could explore if they wanted to do umbrellas just like in a table that's removable, that would be allowed. and any grade level improvements, just, paving or anything like that is allowed.
We have walkways on the other side on the,
Yep.
so walkways and
Walkways
stairs.
and, no, walkways and landscaping are allowed, but the stairs extend upward and would have, railings associated with them.
Is it because the steps are 4 steps instead of 3, so they're required to have a handrail and it's the handrail that's the issue, or is it the stairs
It's the
themselves are the
stairs
issue?
themselves too.
Even if it's a requirement to get up to the building?
So ultimately, staff's determination on this was based on, we've had a lot of discussions with council in the recent past for various projects. They've generally been supportive of allowing some exceptions in the setback, but they've been through a zoning ordinance change and for housing projects. And ultimately, our recommendation was based off the fact that these improvements really didn't seem necessary. There is, if you'll note, there's already a ramp that's provided within the setback or at grade that provides access both to the Hanson Way side as well as to the Page Mill Road side. And then the main entrance to the building is on the interior. So ultimately, staff's determination was that really these didn't seem necessary to still preserve access from, those to those properties or to those areas. Whereas the encroachment for the shade, to us made sense because the building is built to the setback. And so if you want to provide any sort of articulation or improvements on that, it would have to be within the setback.
If I can kind of follow up on that, the ramp, it's hard to tell on the plans and maybe there's an enlargement, I can find it, but the ramps would have handrails too. And steps, even one step would require a handrail. It's not in a commercial world. So do the ramps have handrails and is that allowed?
I think that's a question for the applicant. We were not aware that they had handrails on that ramp. It didn't appear that they did.
But the ramp is not encroaching into the setback. Only the steps from that ramp facing Page Mill, only those steps are encroaching. And same thing on the Hanson Way. The ramp itself is outside of the setback.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the ramp on the north end. Or
Yeah, it's south. So Page Mill, facing the Page Mill, it's parallel to the Page Mill Road. So that one is outside of the setback.
Can you point to where you're talking about in the plan?
Sure, let me find a good, so maybe if you go to the C2 01, please. Is it 01? Oh, C2 page, please. If you go to that one, it shows the ramp in this like square pattern. It's parallel to the Page Mill Road. It basically wraps around the entire building. If you look through north, west, and south. So that entire area. And there are some steps going down to the walkways within the front setback. Page Mill
Those are
setback.
technically not ramps, but sloped walkways is what you're saying.
So that ramp or sloped walkway is outside of the special setback. The only encroaching element is that small stair off that ramp. Can you see it? Maybe can I share my screen? That would be easier.
Yes, please.
I would also ask that maybe we look at sheet A1 .01 as it's larger and also shows the setbacks, whereas the C drawing does not appear to show the setbacks.
Okay, sure.
Isn't it true that the stairs and railings that come from the other, on the Page Mill Road, from the walkways from the building are also in the 50-foot setback?
Sorry, can you repeat that? The walkways on the Page Mill side, the new proposed walkways, are we referring to the new walkways?
Well, the stairs that go to a lower level of the landscape on that facade.
Yes, so let me share, I found this site plan drawing. It would be, I think, the best one to look at. So if you can see my screen and also my cursor.
Yeah.
So this is the ramp that is sloping down towards the east. So if this is the north, this is the south, east, and west side. So this ramp goes down, and we're talking about this tiny stair of the ramp, the highest portion of the ramp that goes down. And I believe, David, you're referring to those walkways within the setback.
I think we might want to get the applicant's presentation and get their explanation, because it doesn't look like that's a ramp. That's a walkway that wraps around the building. There are two doors coming off of the building, so it'd be unusual for the two doors to be at different elevations coming out to the same elevated patio. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that's the ramp. And I guess the bigger, kind of bigger picture question is, like, generally speaking, a building that may be elevated and it's right at the setback line, would they not be allowed to put stairs to go up to the building within the setback?
So those stairs are not required for access or entering or exiting building. Those are additional stairs. For example, the one along Hanson Way is for the employees of the building to go down and have a break, relax in that area, and come back to the office. So it's more like an amenity space for the staff. It's not an exit point.
And no, the answer is no. We would not
think it-
allow stairs within a setback unless it was through an exception process. The stairs, or it was written into the code that you could have stairs encroach. There are code sections in certain zonings that have exceptions specifically for stairs to encroach a certain amount into a setback. But that doesn't apply here.
So typically a building would have their staircase approach should they need one within this, like within the building envelope or buildable area.
Yeah.
So
Are
again,
we
sort of
sure that it's not a required, and sorry to interrupt,
Please.
entrance or exit though?
this one down
That,
here.
yeah,
It's
that,
not, I mean, there's already two exit points there because you already have the sloped walkway at the end of that as well.
Sorry, where?
Well, and that one, there's an existing exit right here that ramps down.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a little bit of clarification as soon as the applicant comes up to their presentation, which will be shortly. But I think we all are trying to sort of grasp the bigger picture question here, which is what's allowed in the setback and what's not, and why would this small item potentially trigger it when this large patio seems to be okay?
No, it's not okay. That's
Okay,
what
so
they're
none
saying,
of this
they're
is
not
okay. So even though this is shown in the drawings and is part of the package
And-
that we would be approving today,
An at-grade patio would be allowed, just paving for the patio. But any improvements related to the patio that are not grade level and, paving would be exceptions that they would have to ask for as part of the process.
so I want to make sure we understand this clearly. So the patio is acceptable, but the stairs to get down to the patio are not. They're technically the exemption. exception that they're seeking, but because they're required to get from the building down to the patio, we should approve them.
No, we're not saying that you should approve them.
I mean, because in the original comment here, it's the recommended the Director of Planning and Development Services approve the major architectural review and design enhancement exception. So what I'm trying to understand is what is the exception that we're looking to approve right
Only
now?
It's for the sunshades, for the vertical elements along the facade, for the tiny sunshades. Yeah, you can see them, correct.
So, but
This is what we are recommending to approve, and we are not recommending to approve the patio walls, umbrellas, stairs and steps encroaching into the special setback. We have conditions of approval asking to remove those.
got it, understood.
Mhm.
Thank you for the
To
clarification.
clarify this a bit more, if there were a ramp, would that be different? And also at the same time, could you explain why stairs would be allowed on the Page Mills side
No, it
with
is not.
railings?
No.
They wouldn't, we are stating that, that would require an exception. To planning staff, it seems an unnecessary exception as there are already code compliant access points, both from Page Mill on the interior and along Hanson Way. And therefore those exceptions don't appear to be necessary. So we are not recommending approval of those. And if you wanted to do a ramp, there are ramps. I mean, there are grade level walkways that are accessing, but again, maybe it would be best to hear more from the applicant
I think
before
so.
we discuss this further.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
at that point. Unless there's any further questions, understanding the clarification of the 50-foot setback, I think we'll move on to the applicant's presentation. Good, okay. To the applicant, thank you for your patience. We wanted to get our clarification points in order first. Usually that part of the segment is a little shorter. So if you kindly approach the podium, you'll have 10 minutes to give your presentation. And I do notice we have a very full house today. So I'm assuming that we've got some public comments. So we'd like to make sure we get to everybody as well. So 10 minutes may begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Whoops.
Looks like you are, but we can't
Got it.
quite hear
Okay,
you.
good morning.
There we go.
I'm Jamie Jarvis, Jamie Jarvis, and I'm the Programs Director for Stanford Research Park. Stanford University's long-term ownership of the Research Park provides this strategic opportunity to support Palo Alto's vibrant innovation economy. The vision for our project at 975 Page Mill is to adapt and reuse the existing building as a place for innovators, creators, and thought leaders to connect and collaborate. The building will draw entrepreneurs that align with the university's focus areas of education, climate tech, AI, and robotics by offering space for a startup accelerator, a learning studio, small offices, shared meeting spaces, and a cafe. This unique building and program will be the first of its kind in the research park. With this project, Palo Alto and Stanford Research Park will define the future of work for the next generation of highly talented workforce. Now I'd like to invite Heather Young from Heather Young Architects to share the details of our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, staff, Claire. Thank you very much, Christina, and board members. Thank you. We'd like to share with you some of the designs for this project. And I would specifically like to invite you to have questions which may extend beyond our allotted time. So just as a heads up.
Unfortunately, we do not allow that. So you'll give your presentation. We'll have time for questions afterwards.
Yes.
Exactly. And then there will be public comment and you will also have a time to respond to any public comment that may come up.
As long as there is time for questions and
We'll have
answers.
plenty of time.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Let's get this going forward. Christina did a great job with an overview of the property location. I would like to assure you that this is a small subset of a larger 10-acre site. The yellow area highlighted there is the actual area of work. There are two completely separate structures on the property. The project will remain net neutral as far as FAR in this renovation. As Christina mentioned, there will be 33 new parking spaces developed, and there is a CUP and the DEE, which we've had some conversation about. The existing building is located right at the special setback on Hanson Way and Page Mill. And that corner is very close, only about 6 inches off of the special setback area. The existing building also is built very closely to the adjacent building at 975. The existing building also is of an exposed concrete tilt up with that sort of creamy sand color with the red tile accents, the green standing seam metal roof. To our eyes, to our project goals, we wanted to bring this adaptive reuse a clean, fresh, contemporary expression. And the currently dated expression was a primary drive for change and renovation. You'll also notice that the windows are fairly small and mannered. We wanted to enlarge them to bring a great deal of daylight into the building. And a primary goal is to increase the activity at ground plane around the building. The entry plaza separating the building from the parking lot is at parking level grade, which is approximately 3 feet below the ground entry off of the parking lot. As you go around the building towards Page Mill, that corner is 4 feet 9 above the sidewalk on Page Mill. The corner is approximately 3 foot 9 above the Hanson Way Page Mill corner and 3 feet above the Hanson Way sidewalk at that side entrance. So you can see we have some challenges in site accessibility and just plain old access. The entrance that you see facing the Page Mill parking lot is the primary entry. You go across at parking level entry plaza, up a short flight of steps, and then run right into the building. We wanted to extend the interior ground plane out of the building to enable people to use the facility both indoor and outdoor comfortably. We also wanted to increase the separation between 975 and 925. And so a 24-foot bay adjacent to the corner building is removed. And as you can see in the diagram on the left, that area is relocated to reinforce the corner and strengthen the form of the building. The plazas that I talked about, no longer at parking lot level, but elevated to interior finish floor level, are now able to be utilized all around the areas that face the Page Mill parking lot. And you see the new shade trellis area to encourage people, even that close to Page Mill, to feel safe and comfortable being outdoors. You're also seeing additional entries, secondary entrance facing Page Mill and another entry exit facing Hanson Way. The rooftop has been modified to significantly reduce the mechanical enclosure and to allow for solar photovoltaics. And to further daylight the building, a large skylight is placed over a new interior stair to bring daylight into the middle of the building. And so as you're seeing on the site plan, all of the paved area, and sorry, I'm trying to get a little cursor going here. All of the paved area, I'll call it plan north of the building, plan west of the building, and this area plan south of the building are coplanar with the interior finish floor. the setback along Hanson Way, right at the edge of the building, this is a required egress stair. There is a landing area, then you come out and there are ramps taking you with accessible access to the public way. You can see now on Page Mill a new series of walkways and sloped walkways that do not require handrails going around the front portion of the building. New landscape to invite building occupants out into the landscape to activate the ground plane and be able to circumnavigate the building all around, which currently is not possible. We've tried, it's not possible. You're also seeing new accessible parking, a new stair coming up from the parking lot to the plaza. Thank you. The material and finishes here that you're seeing and the board I saw got passed around. The biggest change is to add an exterior terracotta rain screen wall, and that is on the majority of the building. We're replacing all of the existing glass with a new high performance clear glass instead of the green tinted glass currently on site. There are zinc composite panel elements at the entries and between paired and enlarged windows. We have steel, painted steel and painted aluminum trellis structures that are greater than 50% open. They allow light and air, but they also provide shade during the day. And then that two-story green glass entry wall is now replaced with a double height curtain wall that allows a great deal of visual transparency between the exterior of the building and the interior cafe seating and upper floor office. This is a diagram that's showing these red areas are the areas of existing concrete panel that have been removed to enlarge the windows. And I know I'm running short on time. The renderings here that you're seeing, the new view coming from the parking lot with the wide entry steps, the clear entry under a second floor balcony, the double height curtain wall, the trellis, and the terracotta panels. This is the Page Mill entry, and yes, you are seeing we need that retaining wall, which is within our buildable area. The steps that go down there on the right are convenience steps. The path of travel for an accessible sloped walkway is a much longer path. And again, we're trying to encourage building users to get out into the landscape, to use it as part of their daily routine and wellness.
And unfortunately, we have run out of time. So
Okay, then I'm just
appreciate
gonna
your
do
presentation. you.
Details of the entry showing the ribs of the terracotta panels. The Hanson patio, the umbrellas are not permanent. They're temporary, removable. Tables and chairs obviously removable. And the low retaining walls and fences, I believe, are allowed in the setback, but could be mistaken. And then the steps and the rear of the building, again, with the outdoor seating areas and the new exterior exit stair to the second floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, we open up the floor for public comment. I believe that we have several. Do you guys have an estimation of how many public speakers we have? Based on comment cards and hands raised on Zoom.
I've actually received none.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, yeah.
Okay.
No,
Just have a
no.
strong support staff here, I guess. This is
Yeah.
great. Okay.
And none on Zoom as well.
So there's no public comments.
No comment cards have been given to me and none on Zoom have been raised, no hands raised.
Okay. So typically at this time, we would allow for the applicant to rebut any public comment, but since there is no public comment, I'll allow you 2 minutes to finish your presentation because normally we have a little bit of rebuttal time for you. So if you'd like to just wrap up the last few moments, if there's anything final items you'd like to discuss, I will give you 2 minutes, but please stick to the time.
Thank you. I'd love to talk a little bit more about the design. Sorry, I keep having a little trouble here. Talk a little bit more about the design. The terracotta panels are large. They're about 2.5 feet wide by 4 feet tall. And there are 4 profiles: a flat panel, a single vertical rib, 3 vertical ribs, and 5 vertical ribs. The material finish board is not the profile we're proposing, but the color and the break of the color on the rib is why that is provided to you. The panels are paired vertically so that when seen across this very large facade, they form a distinct syncopated pattern going across it. The current design is very repetitive, and we were working to find ways to, again, maximize the window size, bring life and distinction and modernity to the facade to make it a bit more timeless. You're also seeing an example of the vertical sun fin that is one of the staff-supported design enhancement exceptions. These vertical on the Page Mill facade and horizontal on the Hanson facade work with the solar orientation to better shade the windows and the walls. The windows are very deep set and are naturally shaded, but this additional shading does help to reduce solar load and reduce energy costs. The whole building is getting a brand new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing system. 27 years ago, when the project was originally approved, there were many forward-thinking, sustainable items included in the project, but technology has advanced, and we're doing our best to make this project as an adaptive reuse go for many decades to come. Again, at
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
I'll
Cutting
take
you
it.
off again, I apologize. All right, at this time, we will turn this over to the board for any questions you may have of the applicant. So you may be bouncing up and down a little bit here. So at this time, we'll ask questions of you, of staff as well. So
Do you mind if I leave this as a
please
share?
leave that up, and we
Okay.
may bounce back and forth between some of your presentation and some of the items that have been shown in the packet. So depending upon what we're discussing at the moment, but I apologize, you will probably stand up and sit down a few times during this. Who'd like to kick us off? Please go right ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. And maybe I would like to continue where we left off before the presentation, talk more about the patio. So my question is, what is the intended use of that patio? So can you please describe to me kind of a day in the life of that patio?
Thank you. So the patio is intended to be an additional outdoor resource for the building occupants. I talked a little bit about the patios on the Page Mill parking lot side, planned north, west, and south, but this is the only patio on the east side. There's also, you can see right here, this is a Stanford Marguerite shuttle drop-off. And so part of the Marguerite route will drop people here every day who, oops, my mistake, who could use this as their main entrance. They could also go to the stair at the Hanson parking lot side. They could also use the Page Mill entrance, or they could use the primary building entrance. As was pointed out by one of the board members, there is also a bus stop. I think it's Samtrans and VTA on Page Mill. So Stanford has a long history of supporting public transit, and they have, they're working very hard to reduce vehicle trips on campus and finding ways to encourage pedestrian access to buildings and engagement, wanting them not to go from the front door to the car and somewhere else, but to spend time on site is part of what that particular plaza is intended to do.
A couple of follow-up questions. So do you ever foresee a scenario where this entrance on Hanson Way will become like a main entrance or a second main entrance to the building? For example, if the building is rented to two different tenants, company A would have a logo on the parking lot side and company B would have its logo placed on Hanson Way, and then the entrance on Hanson Way will become a main entrance for a second tenant.
Interesting question. The building is designed as a multi-tenant building. Many of the Research Park buildings are single-tenant buildings, but one of the reasons that Stanford is focusing on this particular project is to attract smaller companies. And so the concept is that the second floor would have two tenants. The ground floor would have one tenant who would have at this end of the building, at the Hanson Way end of the building. But the other components of the interior of the building are meant as amenities to support everybody. So the cafe and dining area are not in a traditional way just for those building occupants, be it a single tenant or a multi-tenant, but they want people from other buildings in the area to come and walk over and enjoy this facility. There'll also be some programming in the building to attract not just members of the 975 building family, but local SRE building occupants. I don't anticipate a request for building signage at Hanson Way. I think it could easily be an easy access path. The building will have badge securities and people can come and go to their different locations. But there is a potential location here in this area for the monument sign, which I believe is for the whole building and would be able to have signage for the primary building tenants.
If I may continue. So based on the usage that you described for this patio, why do you think it is necessary to have such a wide staircase?
It's a wide staircase because we want it to be inviting. We want it to be easy. We want it to be, you absolutely do have an accessible path of travel. You could go to the right and it's just off screen here, but there is a winding path that is a sloped walkway to the public way and to an entry at the far end of the patio. But in order to not have the handrails to make those paths as gentle as possible, they're very long and circuitous routes. And again, we just felt that it was important to have a simple, easy access. It could be a narrower path. The steps could be narrower, but it would be a little less inviting.
Mm-hmm. And what is the role of the 3-foot wall? And why do you think it's necessary for the usage of the space?
It's a really great question. It's not immediately evident in this image, but the landscape trees that you see here are a mix of existing and new trees. And Marco would know best, but I'm pretty sure this tree right here, is that, can you describe the existing trees versus the
Yes,
new?
I'm Marco Lamb, the landscape architect for the project from Gazzardo. So we do have an existing tree that is right here and also right here. And the reason for having those retaining walls, because as Heather has described, there's a great difference between the finished floor of the patio, upper patio, and this lower patio. And those walls are basically to help keep the grade up and also keep the soil level of those existing trees at the same grade. So that's one of the reasons why we have those walls. That's kind of holding up the elevation of the walkway up by the patio.
So, maybe, so how about on Hanson Way and around the gate? Like, I don't see any retaining function there. Is there another function that you?
Yeah, that wall is sort of giving the separation between the public sidewalk and the patio to give it a little bit of a privacy separation. We intentionally kept it low at 3 feet, and we're primarily using planting as a secondary function for that screening. So it's sort of a double function to kind of help define the lower patio space.
Have you thought about using maybe landscaping, like a hedge, instead of a concrete wall? And why did you decide against it?
Yeah, so with landscaping, eventually the landscaping could mature to provide that security function. But initially, when you first plant it, you can kind of tell the plantings will take a while to kind of achieve that. We think that a more permanent, a low wall would create that sort of an instant security and boundary for this patio space. So it's sort of a more instantaneous function.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's that has to be the case when you can get instant hedges. So I think if you want, privacy, I think that can be achieved with planting more mature landscaping. So I was, what you are saying, it's not, this wall is not necessary for the programming and attracting the small companies and providing that kind of outdoor space. It's not necessary for that.
A portion of that wall is necessary just for the retaining of the existing soil. That would be, yeah, thank you. That would be the pink line. That's a retaining function, as well as along the top here. There's a short wall here up there that's also for retaining function. And we just thought that having the continuation of that wall, it jives with the overall aesthetics of this patio space. And that's the other reason why we have that front wall there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in here really quick. Sorry, David. A question for staff. I'm noticing that transformer, especially given this rendering, and it's a little harder to see on the floor plan here. I'm looking at sheet A 1.01, but you can stay on this sheet that we're looking at here. That transformer is also in the special setback.
Existing.
It is
It's
existing. in the
existing to
special
remain, and
setbacks.
it's
Yeah.
not being required to be removed or anything like that, or
No, we
shift
wouldn't require,
location.
it's city owned
Okay.
property.
Yeah, just also referring to that. So, there's the fact that the transformer is there and the other, I assume, electrical box is there. That's going to be there no matter what. So how do you see the enclosing walls as being somehow a separation from really a rather unsightly element and the creation of a sense of more privacy to is that one of the reasons that the wall is a solid wall at that location?
Yes, that is part of it. It also helps with sound deflection. It gives, again, people a sense of security. There are vehicles, within 15
Yes,
feet.
very close. Yeah.
It's that sense that you are safe. You can sit there and work on your laptop. You can have a conversation and not have to be self-conscious or subconsciously aware of the activity very close by.
Just sort of adjacent uses that justify the entry being more significant than others perhaps would be the bicycle storage within the adjacent parcel there.
Thank you. We do have bicycle storage in several locations at the front door. Yes, there's short-term storage at the front door, short-term storage, as well as a bicycle repair station on Page Mill. There is additional short-term storage here. There's building management e-bike storage in this location, and
Right.
the e-bikes are going to be available to people here,
Mhm.
and long-term bike lockers there.
Mhm.
This is a very crowded area. In addition to the transformers here, there are additional electrical and backflow preventer elements here. You can see our sloped walkway has taken a little dipsy-do path around that and around the existing trees. Excuse me.
Mhm.
This whole corner is littered, as you can see from all the little boxes, with traffic control elements and other items to support the necessary utilities in the area.
Right. Yeah, so some of the people who would come by, relatively considerable number coming by bike would
Yes.
be parking very close to that and perhaps using it as an entry. So it seems logical to keep the traffic that is trying to get into the building separate from that as the patio as a separate and but an attractive part of the connection to the building.
I would agree.
Yeah. That's all for the moment here on that.
Can you jump in with some questions?
Yeah, I'm also going to note that we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the exceptions and the patio versus the building itself. So I do also want to make sure that we do touch base on the building itself at some point during this conversation.
Yeah, actually, this is a good spot to look at this. So we have Heather, thanks for explaining all of the elevation issues here. It looks like you're getting a sloped walk to get up there, right?
Yes.
So this stair that seems to be of concern for the city is secondary, nice to have, but not necessarily required for egress out this area or anywhere else, correct?
That's correct.
You just needed that longer run to this side. Okay, so, and I guess a question for the city, actually back to the patio really quickly. If the patio were to be built at the same elevation as the building, instead of stepping down 4 steps,
No,
That wouldn't be supported.
does that, you could be considered at grade, right? Because grade is,
No. No, grade isn't determined by the first floor elevation of the building.
correct, grade is kind of going up and down and kind of severe grades at some areas. I'm just curious, like, because you did mention at grade would be allowed. If they bermed up to build the grade up adjacent to the building, I'm just curious if that would be supported.
Let me take a look at how grade is defined, but I don't think we would treat that.
In my limited experience, it's usually defined as
Yeah.
existing grade.
Yeah,
So if you bermed it up, you're changing the site and then therefore the grade is not tolerable anymore. But if they built it down flat at grade now, then they kind of have to have steps to get from point A to point B.
Right.
So they're painted in a corner here.
Right.
And significant grading that brings the level of that area up higher would, similar to some of these improvements, actually more so than the proposed improvements, would get in the way of other future use of this space. If that really is at least part of the idea with the special setback, that it reserves this space for future planning efforts with the roadway or other kind of how the research park is envisioned in the long term. And so that staff would have a significant concern with that level of fill as well.
Okay, so if we go back to that, it seems like because you're building some retaining walls for the patio, are you building up grade with this definition we just talked about?
Only minimally to facilitate drainage. It's not a primary effort.
So it is possible if we didn't have the concrete walls around the edges that the patio could be slab with thickened edge without the wall. Is that true?
No, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. The patio itself is more at the sidewalk level. The area immediately outside of actually, let me see if I can go back to the
Is there
aerial.
a site section or something?
Right here, you can see there, you can't see it actually. There's a sidewalk adjacent
Right.
to the building right now, and then there's this very sad little triangular piece of concrete, and then you're fenced in. You can't really do anything because of the grade change. Trying to get that area.
I think if you go to your A101 plan, that might be a good place, or this is maybe.
Yeah,
fine.
this is a good one. You can see this, and again, this is a required egress for the second floor. It has to allow connections to the public way, and it does so
that's this,
here, correct. And then we chose to connect it to this new network of sloped walkways and seat benches on the Page Mill frontage with this shortcut here. Again, the site is dipping down this way. So you've got your highest point of change in this location. The existing trees, which are the single circles versus the sort of shaggy circles, are the new trees. We were trying to protect those, that group here on this corner, as well as this group, and then turn this from that sad little, I'm sorry, I can't be as derogatory as I should be, but it is a very sad location. We're really just trying to make it a inviting, usable space. It is a very visible corner. Thousands of people go up and down Page Mill every day. The Hanson Way intersection sees so much vehicular traffic. What a great way to encourage pedestrian access by seeing pedestrian access, by wanting to be part of that pedestrian experience. It just seemed like a no-brainer to us.
But what's the elevation difference between right here and right here? Between the tree that you're trying to save and your patio?
Marco would be better prepared to address that than me.
Technical here.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand if the retaining wall, if that's necessary, if we put aside the question about the stair, I'm trying to understand
Yeah,
what
the
is
tree,
allowed.
it's higher than the patio. So that's
Oh,
why
so it's retaining the other way.
it's,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
tree is high.
Yeah,
so the
We pushed the patio
down
down
to
closer
street
grade.
level.
patio is at the grade next to the sidewalk. It's closer to the sidewalk grade. And everything else around it, it's higher.
How much higher is the tree than the patio?
It's about.
So existing grade by the building is higher.
Yes.
Yes. Everything steps down from the building down to the sidewalk. So the trees are at a higher elevation, I would say about 18 inches to 2 feet higher than the sidewalk. And the retaining wall is basically to keep the tree at where it is, which is at a higher elevation, and we're sinking the patio down.
But to also
Kind of goes
clarify
back
that,
to the
yeah,
question I had.
I
if-
grade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is the grade? If the grade is where the tree is, and your patio was level with the tree grade.
So the tree, it's somewhat in between.
Mhm.
It's in the middle. So let's say if the building it's at elevation 5, the tree would be at 2.5, and then the patio would be closer to 0. So it kind of steps down.
So the challenge for us was we needed the patio to be a 2% slope.
Right.
And so by locating it lower, we had a nice level area. It could have been higher, but it would have been smaller and less usable and less enticing.
Right. But if it is higher, and you're doing a retaining wall anyway, if it were to be allowed
Yes,
towards Hanson Way, you could have a higher elevated patio that's level with the tree. It's just your slope is this way, you're picking up, building up towards the road.
and you'd still have steps.
Yeah, it seems like you'd probably have half as many steps, but something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so
the-
yeah, we still need a way to get down to the public sidewalk. So if we elevate the patio slightly, you have shorter walls, but there will be more steps or
Mhm.
slope walk back down to the public right away.
Right, and then that front side will have to be developed up,
Right.
which is again
Yeah,
hitting
that's
into
what I
the
was trying
same
to
concern.
understand.
Yeah.
Could also be a slope, just a
Yeah.
steeper slope.
Right.
So I think that's a good idea.
Well, maybe not. We'll see. I'm just trying to understand the issues.
Through the chair, if I may, just as we're listening to this discussion and trying to understand what is proposed and what the options are, I wanted to make sure that there is common understanding. You know, we do have the option to consider some of these as part of the exception that is part of this request.
Mhm.
There are 3 findings that are required. Probably the most difficult is the first one, but it is something that the ARB could consider based on how you feel that this does add to the project, that if there is justification for that.
Can you
And so,
please, sorry to interrupt, can you please read the first finding or
Sure.
give us a summary of that so that everyone is on the
Yes,
same page?
Yes, I will pull that up just a moment. So the first finding is that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property or site improvements involved that do not apply generally to properties in the same zone district. And we do have some justification that was provided since staff is recommending approval of a portion of the request. And if the ARB finds that or with additional consideration is applicable to these additional elements, then that could be part of the recommendation. Second finding is the granting of the application will enhance the appearance of the site or structure or improve the neighborhood character of the project and preserve an existing or proposed architectural style or preserve. There's ands and ors in there, sorry. In a manner which would not otherwise be accomplished through the strict application of the minimum requirements of zoning and architectural review findings. And just for reference, this is attachment B to the staff report that was provided to you. And then finding 3 is the exception is related to a minor architectural feature or site improvement that will not be detrimental or injurious to the property or improvements in the vicinity and will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare or convenience. So that also is an important component of this consideration. So we do have an option to discuss that and for that to be part of your recommendation. I think we've expressed some of our concerns, but I think there is some room to discuss as you move forward with this.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to move to a building question, please.
Can I ask just one last question for this patio?
Sure.
Sorry. So I heard you say that you would like to encourage public transportation and the Margaret shuttle and all of that. So I think I heard that, but then I also saw that this patio has gates. So if somebody gets off the Margaret shuttle, that person cannot access the building through the patio.
I don't know that that's true. It's 3 feet.
But there's a gate.
It's keeps out dogs and I'm sorry. Thank you, not locked. It is private property.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Heather, if you may, if you can stay at the podium, I have a question for you regarding the fins.
Yes.
What is the depth? I saw it's like 11.5 inches or so encroaching. What is the overall depth from the face of the building itself?
I'm going to get it wrong. The ribs on the panel are 1 inch. The fins that project either horizontally or vertically, I believe they're 12.5 inches. I'm looking at Mark shaking his head. One facade is slightly further away from the setback than the other. So one of them, I think, encroaches 12.25 inches and the other's like 11.25 inches. This is showing the vertically oriented fins, but and you can see them here on Page Mill. When you get to Hanson Way and to the Hanson parking lot, they turn into horizontal fins.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
then
enough.
on the Page Mill parking lot side, there is no need for them there, so they aren't there.
Oh, I see. So on Hanson's side, it's just a top fin because the section on 131, which I think was clipped on the page you had before, shows the vertical fin and it seems to project into a walking surface down at the bottom here. If it's vertical, but I don't know if it's vertical.
Correct, that's correct. So here on Hanson Way, they're vertical when the sidewalk is adjacent to the building, so they're 10 feet in the air. But on Page Mill, when you have landscape adjacent to the building, they are adjacent to the windows and no one gets close enough for them to be an impediment to your access.
So is that providing enough shading for what you're trying to do for 12 inches of projection?
We looked at making them longer and we are working with an energy modeler and sun study evaluation group. We're trying to find the marriage of architectural design and buildability. We are trying to use some more standard profiles for the aluminum trims at the window, and this, we believe, is a combination that we can achieve.
I see. So it is a cap extension to the window, not a separate zinc fin. I thought it was.
Correct, correct. And I don't believe I included the details in this presentation, but the window frame is a painted aluminum frame around the glass itself, and there would be an extension of the frame either vertically or horizontally. The zinc element is a larger frame around either the single or the paired window itself. So it's not a zinc extension, it's a painted aluminum extension. And it is the darkest of the 3 colors on the board, so it's the closest match to the zinc color.
Okay. And how, this is more of a detailing question. How are you attaching the terracotta panels to existing precast?
Oh, great question. So it is a rain screen wall system. So there is a series of external aluminum supports that also allow a cavity for an additional 1.5 inches. An additional 2 inches of exterior building insulation. Then there's an air gap that has a horizontal series of channels. And so it is hung off of those panels in a true rain screen application to equalize the pressure between the inner and outer faces.
Okay. And then actually this image is good, like at the very top, the fascia profile, is that the same zinc color?
That
At
is
the
a
very
painted
top.
aluminum fascia cap at the very top of the parapet, yes. Oh, sorry, am I looking at the right thing
Yeah,
up
I
here?
think so, yeah.
Yes, that is painted aluminum. The zinc elements are the wall panels here and the vertical wall panel between the paired windows.
And the zinc color and thickness, how would you describe that?
So the zinc is a composite panel and the bends are achieved with a back score. It's a very thick composite panel. It's got a phenolic inner core. And it's got the inner core is the phenolic, the inner face is also metal so that it has a very even thermal property. It doesn't warp or bend. It stays fairly rigid. So it's not thin at all.
Asking.
One last material question. On the roof, you have got, I think on the sample board, you had a material on it. I forgot. Yeah, so is it one of those colors and is it some kind of corrugated material for the roof screen around the mechanical?
Yes, the roof screen, I believe is the
Yeah, I
P3, the mullion and trim color. Yes, I'm getting the head nod.
Mhm.
The darker of the three.
So what
And-
is the material? Is it a perforated panel or?
The roof screen is a corrugated material, and it is this particular one, and you'll notice that it's the 7 3/4 inch center to center vertical ribbing. We're also using a corrugated panel for the exterior accessory structure, which has the bike storage, building storage, trash recycling, but it's the same color, but a different profile with a narrower ribbing. They're very differently viewed. And we were actually very particular in locating the mechanical roof screen. You just barely see the top of the roof screen here. Where our eye level is clearly at about 30 feet here, and you do see it in this image. You'd be hard pressed to see it as a pedestrian. You don't see it even with a elevated visual point of view at Hanson. You do see it a little bit from the Hanson parking lot, but even here, our eye level is about 15 feet in the air. And there's the accessory structure over to the left. It's an existing concrete building that we are now cladding with this painted aluminum panel and extending.
Okay. And the terracotta fins, you said they're an inch, like in this view, like the shadows makes it look like it could be quite thick, but.
I
it's that.
apologize. This is not as strong a representation as this particular image. They're about, I believe, 1 1/8 inches wide and then 1 inch thick. The edges of them are softened, the outer edges and the inner edges. And actually, that's one of the things we really loved is how the glaze and light is going to fall across that during the day. Cloud cover, I'm sorry to gush, we're in love with that white color. It just does magical things when the clouds move and the sun moves.
Thank you.
So speaking of those white terracotta tiles, I love them too. Like I was just trying to imagine this building clad in those tiles, the whole building, especially on the Page Mill side. Like the building is fairly long, and now that I've seen the sample, it has a little sheen. It's almost like semi-gloss. So I was just wondering, like even the glare. From the outside is like the building is so white, it's so big, sun is shining. So my question is, have you considered maybe has some variation in colors? For example, you have that corner, the corner that is on the setback line. is kind, and then there's the left side of the building that is more recessed. Maybe have like, a variation in color that would make, maybe make the building maybe less monotonous. Maybe, reduce the glare, maybe make it more cuter. Have you thought about it?
The length of the Page Mill facade was something that we recognized early on had the potential for repetition and monotony. And let me go to that hard elevation. Sorry, it's going to take me just a second. This is going to slow down. Apologies. One of the reasons that we stepped back the Page Mill entry was to break the facade. We also wanted to be able to emphasize the Page Mill entry with that balcony and trellis to bring additional color and variation to the overall facade length. We also,
Yeah, exactly.
this is the facade. I'm sure you noticed the pair window, pair window, pair window, pair window. So there's again, the zigzag of that component. This portion has no windows and a slightly different window pattern up above. There's an extensive use of zinc and larger panes of glass at the entry on both the lower and the upper floors. We didn't really think about alternate colors or more than one terracotta color. The finish, I think, is actually more on the matte side than a semi-gloss. We've taken it out in the sun, and we do have some larger samples on the way, but we've taken it out in the sun. We've looked at it in different angles, high, low. I haven't been too worried about that glare issue that you talked about. I'd like to think that we've been proactive in addressing the length of the facade's design with the approach you see here. We're really trying to have something clean and simple and as, I'm sorry, David.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't think you're mentioning enough the fact of the design idea here with these vertical elements that break up the pattern here and break up their own pattern as well.
Yeah.
So there's a very kind of casual feeling to the outside of the building. And it doesn't feel to me, if we're at this point in the discussion, talking about the quality and the feel of the building, we have had a lot of buildings in which we have asked the architect to come back to us with a more modest white color, and I think that you've done that here already for us. We don't need to have additional colors to describe this building as not being offensive visually that way, as being too bright when the sun gets around on that side, because there'll be a lot of detailed shadows happening around all of these ridges.
Yeah, I agree with David on that. I think that the shadows and the lines will break it up quite nicely, but also the concept that I love talking about LRVs. So I am love that paint sort of stuff, but this one, because of the texture and because of there's some, there's an organic element to it as well, that it's not a sheet of metal. Because it's a terracotta, it's got very minor pitting and texturing to it that will also bounce the light around slightly differently as well. And just even looking at it on the board, I would argue that it's closer to almost like a very light gray, but it's not. It really is a white. It's just a muted white. I feel like I'm supposed to have a question here because we're not supposed to make comments at this time. Let me ask, do you know the LRV of it? Would be the question to ask.
I do not, but I would be more than happy to have any of you come to our office and see the 50 other whites that we have explored in honing in on this particular one. It is a tough thing. Some go purple, some go green, some go gray. This one has just a hint of warmth to it to knock down some of the bright white. And these lights, you do have a mix of
Terrible. Yeah.
daylight and, well, yeah. But it has been a love of ours. I do want to go back to your question, though, about the overall facade. One of the things that we talked about early on in the team is the fact that this facade in particular has to read when people are going 45 miles an hour on Page Mill. Zip, zip, zip. It has to read when they're at an intersection and paused for a moment. It has to read when they are adjacent to the facade and engaging that landscape area at the front of the building. And so we did want, as David mentioned, to have layers of scale, layers of texture, and bringing in that extra color, just it felt like going sideways from that path.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask for any final questions from the ARB for the applicant and or staff. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the circulation. Can we move on to the site plan?
Yes. Sorry, let me see if I can get there faster. Oops. Yes.
So while I do appreciate I understand the reason why you want to raise the front patio and also like to have a more inviting entrance, plaza entrance to the 975 building. However, what I noticed there is compared to what existing there is like the very wide plaza walkway that also connecting both 925 and 975. So with the proposed parking lot and the raised and the relocated stairs, it seems like the 925 is kind of like disconnected as originally proposed. So it's from like 20 feet wide plaza walkway down to like only, I don't know how wide the ramp it is. So it's like, it's narrow, and also when people want to access to 925, they have to go up and down to go through the ramps. So I want to know like the reason why you want to relocate the exterior stairs, and also what the impact for the existing pedestrian traffic pattern.
Thank you. So this area was basically at grade with that, we called it the runway coming out. So as you come from Page Mill, you're basically going up. So by the time you get to the parking here, this is coplanar. This is all of this is coplanar. There's no more steps or ramps in that area. The accessible parking here does have a small sloped walkway to come up to the plaza, but the majority of that sectional change has happened before you get to that part on the site. The opportunity to adaptively reuse the existing building did present some challenges in how the two architectures would marry. And also was one of the reasons why we felt it important to remove that 24-foot bay immediately adjacent. When you're on site right now, they feel really crowded. And so removing that bay, giving the two buildings some space was a fundamental goal. We I don't believe our project detracts from the entrance that you feel here when you're in the parking lot going towards that building. I think the two of them sit together as two separate buildings on the same site that respect each other, but don't necessarily have to mimic or copy each other. The 925 structure does have what we affectionately call beaks, the little projecting roof components. And it was a big theme going around for the whole campus. And it always felt like it wanted to be a trellis. It wanted to be an architectural embrace of the area outside of it, but it never quite got there. And so we feel like our wraparound trellis is what that building wanted to be, to embrace the landscape and to reach out. It's a 10-acre parcel. Oh, I don't think your mic is on.
Thank you. I think my question is more like, aren't you, what existing is like here, the red line shows the existing plaza walkway. So now we just shrink down to that narrow. Does it impact the traffic pattern?
Honestly, the 925 Page Mill is a R&D and manufacturing facility. The majority of people, if you go there on a weekday, very few people, because 975 is vacant, obviously. Very few people actually park in the front parking lot. They all park around the building and they enter at the door that's closest to their area of work. Originally, when the campus was built, the 925 building was the R&D manufacturing and 975 was the front office component of it. And over time, they gave up the front building and it went to other tenants, and they have some minor office in 925. I don't think it's an impact.
Okay, gotcha, thank you. And another question is, you mentioned that the cafe will be shared with the adjacent buildings. So is there any access like from the back of the walkway to the patio, or people has to go all the way up and then come back?
Great question. So this is the cafe dining area, and the cafe servery is here and the back of house behind it. There are doors in the glazing system. There is an at-grade connection here, an at-grade connection there, another at-grade connection here. We've already talked about the connections at the perimeter of the site. The cafe is meant to support people who are in the building, on the site, adjacent to it. We tried to make it as open and available as reasonably possible.
Oh, your mic. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Can we go to sheet A 1.20, the first floor plan?
Right here. Yeah.
So
Yeah, you can see the doors here and here to allow you to get in, as well as the front door. You can also come in from the Hanson parking lot entrance as well as the Page Mill entrance very easily.
yeah, so my question for this floor plan is, you have two shaded areas at the cafe. So there is a gray area separate this back house and the seating area. So when you calculate the floor area, is it accurate, or does it impact like the parking calculations?
Great question. So all of this area is open. There are no interior walls until you get to the wall behind the servery. So this is representing a pedestrian, an interior circulation path to the seating, the outdoor. You could just use this path if you were in the building and wanting to go to the patio. It's not necessarily that you are part of the cafe dining or the back of house or the servery zone.
I see. And one minor question is, I see the main entrance door is offset from the center line of the exterior stairs. Is it on purpose?
Well, part of our adaptive reuse is to retain the existing structure as much as possible. The second floor has a 24-foot column spacing. The ground floor has a 12-foot column spacing. And so this is one of the quirks of an adaptive reuse project. We hope that the way we've incorporated it adds some interest and variety to the building, and still is a solid design.
And one last question for the materials. So for the exterior stairs accessing to the second floor, what's the railing material?
This is glass. Oh, you mean at the rear parking
back-
lot?
Yeah, the
Oh,
back
yeah,
one.
the rear parking lot.
Yeah, that's
It's a perforated metal panel from Bach Modern, and we're working with them to customize the pattern so that it has as close as we can proportions to the sort of ribbing and shadows, that are happening on the wall.
Okay, and how about the low wall, the low concrete wall? What's the finish of it? Is it smooth finish or like the back patio that we talk about?
Yes.
Or
I-
it's
I
textured?
believe The finish of the low concrete retaining walls, Marco, that's just a smooth concrete?
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's all my questions.
I'm going to keep my questions pretty short. No, if you'll just humor me for 2 more minutes. Can we go back to the site plan really quickly?
Yes.
So just to clarify, we've got easy access here, 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 and then people can obviously go down this ramp, which sort of goes down and then back up, if I'm understanding correctly, because this is sort of a higher side and this is a lower side. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And then for this staircase here, sorry, I'm going to delete my own stuff. On this corner, is there any reason, like I understand that you've got a door system here, so you'd want immediate emergency access out instead of having them to sort of go that way. That makes sense to me. The question would be, why couldn't that staircase sort of be incorporated in the corner over there? Why would it have to be outside into that special setback?
That is an excellent question. We were trying, as you can see, to extend the edge of the building here. We did do a number of studies where we looked at some switchbacks, and it just felt disruptive to anybody who was, for instance, taking their bike back to this area, or, had come up from here with their bike after getting off the bus and dropped it off there. It felt like it was the missing tooth when you nibbled it out of the corner of the patio.
Okay. How opposed are you guys to the concept of removing as many of those retaining walls as possible? Keeping that at grade?
The Hanson patio.
Yeah.
I can't say it's something that we love. I would like to ask the board and staff if they might be open to considering an approval with a condition for that patio with the, no umbrellas. I mean, they're not permanent umbrellas. But to approve the design as presented with, I don't know if it would be an easement or I don't know how this works through the city system, but some agreement that if at some time in the future, the special setback area was needed by the city of Palo Alto to increase the width of Hanson Way, that the stair and the patio would be removed. As was pointed out, there are a number of existing utilities in that area that do exist. And frankly, the likelihood of the city wanting to take over more of that area, there's already a bike lane. There's already, I believe, a lay-by for the Marguerites, but I could be wrong on that one. If they did need to widen it, that the team would come back and modify this situation.
Okay. Thank you. I think at this point you may be seated. Claire, I see you've got something.
Just wanted to note that if the board wanted to consider that, then we would need direction just to update the findings prior to the director making a decision, and there would be some sort of condition of approval that we would add to reflect that.
Yes.
It wouldn't be like an encroachment permit or anything.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. I'm going to kick us off with just final comments, final thoughts. First of all, I would commend you on the design of the building itself. I think the fact that we did not speak to the building very much indicates, as we know in our community, that it usually means that it's great. We only talk about the things that annoy us or we've got questions on. So the fact that your building was largely approved, in my mind, I think that we all sort of didn't have very many complaints would be the way that I would phrase that. I'm very fond of the striations that you have in the terracotta tiling. I think it's a unique and interesting material. I think it's the adaptive reuse that you guys are trying to accomplish here is going to be huge improvement from what's there. I think everyone can agree with that. We talk a lot in Palo Alto about having indoor-outdoor space. We live in a community that has been blessed with exceptional weather and that we really do value our indoor-outdoor time, our compassion for nature, and our love of trees. So I think that this site is really taking a building that is woefully dated and giving it the new vibrance that it really needs. On a personal note, I think that the concept of what's going on inside of the building is also quite interesting as well and very intriguing. Living in this area, we all know somebody who's been in an incubator at some point or another for trying to get their startup off the ground. And I think that having a space like this will be hugely beneficial to the tech community that we live in and to the potential future businesses that will arise out of this area. So hats off for that as well. I like the bike structures. I like that they're all over the place. I think that the improvements to the site with the pathing, on the Page Mill side is quite elegant and understated. And I think that it's a quite nice way to accomplish what you guys are trying to accomplish there. Personally, I can't find a reason that staircase has to be in this bottom left corner of the sheet. Asking for an exception for that one, while I understand why it's there, logically it makes sense, but the rule is sort of in place for a reason. And we'd have to have a really legitimate reason for why that staircase needs to violate that rule. So I personally am having a hard time. If any of my board members have a disagreement with that, I'd love to hear it. And going back to the sort of thorn in all of this is that Hanson side patio. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, the patio itself is not the issue. It's more the staircase between the patio and the building. And that's what we would need to find a design exemption for. In addition, there's some of the retaining wall questions, right? Retaining walls, the ones that you've got drawn are also very heavy and concrete. They're not sort of like cable rails. They're not something that's sort of a little bit more unobtrusive or could be more easily dismantled. So I think the concept of having those concrete retaining walls specifically on the side closer to Hanson sidewalk is a bit problematic as well. And I'm really having a hard time finding that the exceptional circumstances that we would need to approve that low retaining wall. Understanding that the patio is at grade and acceptable and understand the building is where it is, I can see that there may be an exceptional circumstance that would allow this staircase between, right? It's mostly the retaining wall that seems to be problematic. And then also understanding that you have to keep that tree supported would also indicate a viable reason for why that back retaining wall would need to be there. In general, all rules aside, just a sort of personal comment, I think the patio is delightful. I think it's exactly what this space needs. It's exactly what this corner needs. It's exactly what Palo Alto is constantly pushing for in terms of finding more design enhancements. I think that the concept that it's going to enhance the neighborhood is the number one reason to put this in there. Otherwise, it's a very sort of stagnant corner while being right next to two major transit stops. So having that patio there does do quite a lot for the neighborhood as well as the building itself. I would also argue that that retaining wall reduces the neighborhood compatibility. So not having the retaining wall would also further enhance its neighborhood presence. Those are my comments. I just wanted to say, again, kudos for the design. I really am quite looking forward to it, and hopefully 925 gets a little facelift as well sooner or later. Thank you very much to my colleagues.
I can go next. Always enjoyed your work, Heather, so this is another nice addition. Think the colors are very muted, but it's beautiful. I think the tone on gray and a little touch of green on the landscaping. I think it's a very nice collection of colors and proportions. I'm really glad you guys are able to make those tiny windows bigger. I'd love to watch it go into construction drawings and how all of that works, but there's good promise there. And same with the wraparound trellis. I think it's a tall structure, but I think it has a really nice balance with the scale of the building. All the things we didn't talk about, but I want to appreciate your design on all of that. I'm with Kendra on this stair here and looking at your, entrance egress plan too. You have, major entrance exits. This is convenience from these two guys, but does not seem essential. So pushing the boundary on that seems not so essential, but maybe you could have one of these cute little bench moments here to kind of break up that path instead of needing that stair. But the patio on Hanson, and I actually drive like this path quite a bit, and Hanson is a slightly slower, less trafficked area. So I think having that patio there would be really nice. But same with Kendra. I think the retaining wall edge on that feels a little too large of a solid concrete thing in the front. So whether you do it with even wood railings or something that creates that little enclosure, but not be, so tall, like concrete walls. I think even that little gate image that you had for that area, like using that language for that enclosure, I think would be nice. And then the plants as they grow, and maybe you can start slightly larger plants to start with, and like kind of screen that, even whatever railing edge you choose here. And I support the letting that stair be part of the project as for this project enhancement. And if it needs to be a condition such that, anything past that walkway is removable if needed down the road, if that's a condition or what have you, I think that we can support that. And thank you again for really thoughtful design.
Yeah, thank you again for your presentation. I think you did a great job on how to reuse a existing building. There are always challenges for adaptive design. And I think the clean, fresh look of the building is really great. And the materials are very careful sorted. And also I do appreciate the enlarged windows that can allow more natural light to come into the interiors. And for the Hanson patio, I think it's a great addition to the site because it enhances the indoor-outdoor experience for the entire building. And also it makes sense to have the exterior stairs there to have the more direct access from the building to the patio, although it is within the special setback. Similar to what my colleague mentioned about the concrete wall, I think it is kind of cold and harsh and too enclosed for the Hanson patio. Maybe if you do want to create a privacy feeling for that patio for the employees there, maybe more open or more warming materials is encouraged. Thank you.
Well, okay. I definitely think there's some good comments that the other board members have made here just now. The patio, I just want to state that I've been excited about that possibility from the moment I saw it. that you're creating a terrific use of the entire site. So many of these buildings are just a landscaped outside, but you're inviting your tenants to use the entire site in a very creative way. And the patio is definitely a very important part of it. I agree, it could be softened a bit by some perhaps new type railing on top of a concrete wall, so it's not just a plain concrete surface surrounding the patio. And the idea of it somehow relating to the gates and the metal might be a way to do that. But I do feel strongly that the city should allow for a design exception for this particular feature. And I find the connections to the walkway along the side, Page Mill side, are inviting. And oftentimes I've seen these tech people with their phones talking business as they walk around buildings. And so this is an invitation to do some more of the same, explore the site at the same time. And enliven the site, in fact, for the people who go back and forth through the entire area here. So it sets a relationship that I hope will be repeated somewhere else, not just a landscape for its own sake, but a landscape to be used. I was wondering, I had a question and I never got it out. Is the artwork, is that a art piece for the community? Where maybe could ask you to explain that a little bit, because it's very exciting in that front elevation. Where is it?
You bring up an excellent question. Actually, Jamie Jarvis did a presentation to the Palo Alto Art Commission a week and a half ago. And the image that you were seeing of the art at the rear wall of the main entry is in fact part of our public art contribution. They agreed that the lobby location, sorry, I can't get the screen to go here. They agreed that that lobby location here, oops, that wall was highly visible, front and center. The building is open 50 hours a week to the public. It met the criteria for that. And so we will be reviewing the proposals for that with the Art Commission as the project moves forward. Can I jump in? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I do hate, and actually, I do hate to say, we really are closed for more presentation time. So I apologize for that. David had a very
My bad.
specific question, so we allowed for the exception, but I do need to keep us moving forward here, but thank you.
Okay, so
Appreciate you
just, of course, you're going to consider how you light that, since it is an interior feature. Well, of course, the front of the building now that faces the parking lot, it's a terrific scale to it. And it's important to have it that high because it is sort of competing with that, what is that element on the adjacent building at the same time. And it creates a different character, which I think is terrific. And maybe someday they'll actually imitate your design versus the other way around. I have really only one other comment to make, and that is that will there be, from the window that faces the parking lot on the west side, I guess the Page Mill side, as it faces that large open corner windows, series of windows, will they have extending canopies as well above the windows? Or, I mean, no, it's a flat surface? Because it seems to me the character somehow of that ought to represent what's going on inside, because the extensions not only are for lighting and sunshades, but they're of the character of the building. So without saying do it, I'd love you to just explore it as a possibility. I think maybe you look at it closely, you may decide that it ought to be an inclusion on that side, giving a little more depth to the face that is out, consider that. But other than that, it's a very, very nice building and does improve I think, the character of the whole of the research park. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, David. Martin, let's wrap us up here.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my first ARB meeting, and I'm so happy to review this project because it's such a beautiful design, and I was so excited to read through the plans. I mean, huge congratulations to the team. And I mean, I will not go through all the list. I have a long list here that I've written about all the things that I like about this building. In the interest of time, I'll skip that, and a lot of that has already been said. What I would like to focus on is we went through that. Claire, you read out the findings for the exception, and one of the things is are we trying to achieve something here that cannot be achieved through other means? And for me, the Palo Alto Comprehensive Plan expressly states that we want to encourage startup activity and incubator activity in the Stanford Research Park. And we want to bring services to the Stanford Research Park. And I think this is the kind of project that maybe the Stanford Research Park is missing. I mean, that's why the land that the owner wants to do something, because there's a huge need, and there's the city of Palo Alto needs it too. So for that reason, I believe this project is very critical. And I agree with the comments that were said about the staircase on Page Mill Road, and the Hanson patio, about the wall. But I also want to be very sensitive to the fact that we have to attract those kinds of businesses to the Stanford Research Park. And for me, if there is too much doubt that scaling down these plants will prevent those types of tenants showing up, that would be a worry for me. So I think that would be my priority, is to create a plan that can achieve these goals that are in the comprehensive plan. And I heard you talk about I asked specifically about the concrete wall, and I asked you, can it be? Do you need the concrete wall, or can you achieve it through another mean? And then you went on saying you talked about the sound deflection. You talked about the feeling of security when people are working there. Potentially, they are working on confidential projects. They are sitting right next to the traffic. So yes, I would 100% love you to not have concrete there. I mean, I think for the community feeling and the neighborhood feel, to be as following the zoning code as much as possible. I definitely want you to do that, but I also don't want to risk creating something that you just created because this is what we tell you to create, and it prevents you from attracting those tenants, and nobody's going to use the space because there's too much noise, or they don't feel safe, or whatever. So I think that would be a double whammy. I mean, you don't achieve your goals, and the comprehensive plan also doesn't achieve the goals. So I think that would be my feedback is kind of really think about the Hanson patio, all the concerns that we raised. And I think if you feel confident that you can make it work for you, following those comments that were made, then, go for it. But I think if you come to the conclusion it cannot be done, if you put mature landscaping and you reduce the size of the staircase, and but you don't believe that it can be a usable space, then for me that would be also a possible next step. But then I think for me I would like to see maybe more information about that. Like you gave me a few bullet points casually about the sound reflection and the security, but if there are maybe testimonials or examples of other buildings that where these kinds of if you show us examples of other incubators or similar buildings or testimonials from business owners that use these kinds of spaces, like some more data that we can go by. It's not just kind of our own intuition, but I think if somehow you can prove that those things are necessary, like I would be interested in seeing that. But of course, if you can make it work with less of an infraction into the zoning code, that would be perfect. So that would be my final comment.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. David, did you have something?
Well, I just wonder if we want to put this into some wording that would say that in some way that, and vote on it, and as to how we feel about whether or not.
Well, I'm happy to draft a motion and see if people agree or have any friendly amendments. Everyone okay with that? All right. So I move to approve this project as shown with the following conditions, that the site stair be removed from the scope of work. The one that's the exemption will not be approved. Sorry? Exactly, the one that board member Muslim has highlighted there.
The one facing Hanson Way?
Correct. Thank you.
The one facing
Oh,
Page
sorry,
Mill.
Page Mill, the one in the Page Mill corner. That one be removed from the scope of work. Additionally, I would say that the Hanson patio be approved as designed with the exception of the front retaining wall along Hanson Way. I do think that those rear ones should also be noted. They should be as minimal as possible. So to retain the tree, to allow for the appropriate survival of that tree, but that they really be maintained for as minimal as possible. And specifically that the staircase between the patio and the building be approved as an exception.
I would start off with your third part there, because that's the most important thing that we have to say to planning, that we and the city.
And I
So
would
would reverse the order there, but
sure.
could you explain a little more what you mean by what needs to be done on the wall adjacent to the
Sure.
street side? Because some kind of a retaining wall has to be used there.
So my thinking is that the one along this facade along Hanson Avenue does not need to be there. I'm not finding an excuse that we can come up with that it couldn't be done with landscape or shrubbery or something like that. So in my mind, they can do whatever they want with landscape, but I'm having a hard time coming to the conclusion that is a requirement. Now, Martin made a very compelling argument that the security of startups might be at play here, but if that's the case, then they just might not be working outside. Or they'd be tucked into this back corner where they've got a retaining wall and a tree behind them. So the concept that they would need this particular retaining wall for the security of whatever they're working on, it was close, but not quite enough to push me over the edge there. I think landscaping should be enough.
A major amount of landscaping, perhaps, because you
Absolutely.
could continue. Is it possible that you could say it could continue, but the concrete element should be minimalized,
Well, I had thought about the concept of a seat wall or something like that, but again, then that's not providing security. It's really providing a physical barrier between the sidewalk and this patio. And while I understand the need for separation of space, I think that that can be achieved with landscaping. So I can't find a reason, unless you guys can convince me otherwise, that there's needs to be a fence, a physical fence.
I think, the concrete wall is too much, but if it's a physical barrier, like a, low, like guardrail type
Box
finish,
hedge.
would be
Yeah.
fine.
So you're
Planter
okay with
box
the,
would be fine.
yeah, planter box, that
Um,
works. That's landscaping.
It's landscaping that's movable. It's, the wall itself is visually more of a barrier, and I'm not convinced that you need to sit in that edge and working on confidential material when you have this ginormous building
Claire.
and patio wraparound in a more secure area,
Right.
right? So that Hanson patio does not have to be the one place where you go look at sensitive material, but it is to the findings, it is a building enhancement that cannot otherwise be achieved to
Agreed.
have that patio, and I think that's what we're supporting.
So point number 3, Claire, would be that the staircase between the patio and the building be allowed. Because we do feel that that is a site feature that, because of the grade, it's somewhat the only possible method to get from patio to building. I think that it's a safety feature that people could run out of the building a little bit faster. And it will definitely enhance the neighborhood.
Okay, and so those are the additional elements in terms of the findings that you believe do justify that exception?
Do we need to add some sort of language to this to direct staff to update the findings to reflect that probably?
We would invite you to include that as a note, maybe with these items, that the ARB would recommend additional conditions be added to allow for future removal if requested by the city.
So to add a 4th bullet point to say, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a given based on the legalese of this 50-foot setback to begin with. But yeah, just to be super clear, that the, I guess, applicant, that there is an inherent understanding that should future work be required by the city of Palo Alto, that any items within the setback will be removed.
I would say items not necessary for egress be removed.
Items not necessary for egress be removed. But then that might keep the staircase in. I guess not necessarily
No,
because the
egress
path to the
path
side.
is
Okay.
along the edge of the building.
I agree with that.
Can I ask a question? So when you were saying the staircase should be allowed, are we allowing the staircase in the proposed form, or can it be reduced to a standard 36-inch staircase?
That's a great question. My argument would be that I think the wider staircase is a safer item. I think it is more inviting. I think that it does enhance the neighborhood in a more profound manner than a 36-inch staircase would. So I would argue that the fact that the staircase is as wide as it is a benefit. So I would keep it at the design
Yeah, I
size.
agree with
The
that too.
code minimum would be 48, not 36, but I think it's.
I'd love that you know all the codes.
But I think as designed, it makes the patio much more welcoming inside, outside, and
Mhm.
lines up nicely with the recess in the building.
That's right.
And to keep going back to the neighborhood enhancement, I think that will really profoundly impact the way that this patio is relating to the neighborhood as well as to the building itself. So.
Thank you.
So should for the approval of the project as proposed be accepted as a design DEE? Should we get the wording in there? Design exception in some way?
Move to approve the project as proposed with the following items. Modifications, perfect. And the concrete panels and has way be removed. Landscaping use provide the separation. Would a staircase between the patio and the building be allowed as a DEE, I believe? Yeah, that's fine. You can just leave that one as it is. But to the 3rd bullet point, the staircase between the patio and the building be allowed as a DEE.
So one point of clarification,
Please.
the initial statement is approving the project as proposed. And so then the statement about the staircase being allowed shouldn't be an accept or a modification. It should be because the applicant is proposing.
So we
the
don't need to
stair.
grant a design exemption for it.
You do. I'm just recommending some slight modification to the language.
To the initial statement language. Okay, so to approve the project with the following
As
modifications.
recommended by staff.
Okay,
With the following modifications to allow the stairs and the elements of the patio with the additional findings.
I'll let Claire finish her
Something
thought
like
here.
this.
Yep, that's
or-
good. But to the top part, move to approve the project as recommended instead of as proposed. As recommended by staff with the following modifications. Where'd you steal my staircase, Claire?
Well, but were you,
There we go.
you're saying that it's already.
No, it's just the language of as proposed versus as recommended by staff, because staff had some
Oh, I see.
modifications to it.
Okay.
No, good catch on the language. Mm. Okay,
So the concrete that is parallel to Hanson Way be removed. Yeah, but
removed from the scope of work.
there are concrete walls
On the
on the
other.
walkway as well.
Yeah, I think we need to edit the item to the concrete walls around the patio adjacent to Hanson Way.
Oh, wait, before you change it, hang on one second, go back. So the concrete wall that parallels Hanson Way, that's really just the one along the sidewalk.
Right, but the wraparound with the gate
Okay,
also doesn't need to be as high. I know there's
Correct,
certain
okay.
height necessary for the retaining, but not the wraparound.
so please leave that portion, then after the right of way, do a semicolon and then say other retaining walls to be limited to as needed
Mhm.
heights.
Should be, yeah, limited to height and
To heights.
necessary for protection of
Reduced, that's
existing
right.
trees.
Minimum
That's
required.
That's good.
Minimum necessary
Yeah, that's good.
for
That's
earth
fine.
retention and tree preservation.
It's good. Just
For
As
earth
needed.
retention, for soil retention and tree preservation.
soil retention, okay.
There we go. Beautiful. Okay, any other comments from ARB? Any questions?
Has this been seconded?
Not yet.
Just to confirm, the CUP, the requested CUP is approved as part of this motion?
No, the ARB doesn't make a motion related to the CUP.
That's a separate.
That's a separate, that's a
Thank you.
staff level.
Okay,
It's just provided for informational purposes.
okay. One really random stray ball. The perforated metal railing at the interior rear stair, the Bach Modern piece. Could you see that as the wall along Hanson Way and
I think
instead of the
David was
concrete wall?
arguing for that. I personally cannot find a reason that it would have to be a stationary wall. So I am making the motion to require that as a landscape wall instead of that. Now, you can always have the opportunity to come back and sort of make your case argument for that at a later time with,
Okay.
once we have approval one way or another. So unless my fellow board members can convince me otherwise, this is how I'm going to put my motion forward, that it has to be landscape instead of any sort of physical wall barrier.
So they could make a friendly amendment, but that's not part of your
Or-
motion.
Correct.
Got it.
So
Thank
unless
you.
someone can make a friendly amendment that I'm gonna agree with, this is how I'm putting my motion forward,
And just to
I will
be
move it.
clear,
please.
that would be included in the other retaining walls.
So,
Or should we make another statement to specifically about that?
so I think what she's asking is if we could, where that retaining wall is, we're asking it to be removed parallel to Hanson Way, just that front straight wall run. She's asking that that be done as a staircase railing. Now, if we were to say that's okay, then yes, we would write that in there.
I felt what she meant was the side that is closer to the building, like in
Mhm.
front of the staircase. Like left and right from the staircase.
No, you're
it
talking about the
isn't- there's
Hanson
no-
wall. Okay,
just
so
the
it's, yeah,
Hanson,
so
okay.
it is this wall running right here. Okay.
I will make a friendly amendment about
Please.
that. Because I think an open.
Sorry, we need a second before
sorry.
we have a.
Oh, friendly amendments. Okay, I thought we were still writing it. All right, so that's my motion as I'm putting it forward.
I'll second.
Perfect, seconded by Yingxi. And now we have a friendly
I have
amendment on the
friendly
table.
amendment that the enclosure around the patio can be open railing type feature, no higher than 3 feet from the patio surface. I should
Can you
say.
give me a good reason why? Why
Um,
can it not be accomplished by landscaping? What's the
I think
exceptional
it should be
circumstance?
allowed to be because the space that they've got, like they're showing the couple of trees. I can go back to the site plan here. Sorry, there are trees along,
Can you
particularly
change
on
that
the
to
back.
railing instead of
Actually-
wall? Sorry.
Particularly in the areas that they're trying to save the trees, there's not enough space to plant a hedge for that privacy on the ones, the two sides that they're trying to save the tree.
So along here, these are all along Hanson Way.
Right.
Those are all new trees.
Right, no, like if the design is consistent wrapping around the patio, I don't want to hamstring them to have one strategy on two sides of the patio and separate on the others, on the street side of the patio.
Sorry, I'm not clear. Do we have something
Can
we
we
can
go
bring up
to
on
a
the
site
screen?
plan?
Yeah, sorry, Claire, I'm gonna flip you back.
Like even A101 would be fine.
I believe someone is pulling up A101 at the moment, so we will pause while that comes up on the screen.
Sorry, Christina, can you share that site plan?
A101 is perfect, if we can get there.
Give me 1 second.
Essentially, if there's hedge planted, you kind of need at least 2 feet of dirt to plant hedges widthwise. And so if we stay right here,
Mhm.
here's a tree that they're trying to save. Well, sorry, let me find my pen. Come on, there you go. Here's a tree and here's a collection of trees that they're trying to save.
Correct.
So along this edge and
Yep.
this,
Yes.
if they take up another, 18 inches, 2 feet to plant, they're digging into the soil around the trees, and I think that's what they're trying to save.
Oh, no, I think you misunderstand. So
You mean this side, right?
Exactly. That's the only wall we're talking about removing. The other ones are allowed to stay as retaining walls.
Only up to the retaining height, though.
Correct.
Which in section would be, so here's the dirt with the tree, which is higher, here's the patio,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So I'm sitting over here on the patio.
Yep.
This is going to need some amount of thing if we wanted to give them the 3 feet of height, or you're saying this side, this is the section I'm drawing,
Mhm.
is only the little curb and nothing else, right? And because they don't have space here to plant a bush to get privacy.
I don't think so the bushes that we're talking about are really only along this side here. The thing that's being asked is that this retaining wall along this zigzag edge just be reduced to follow grade so that it's not 3 feet tall the whole way, so that it's just sort of a little bit more subtle and a little bit more minimal. And same thing on this side, that retaining wall sort of follow grade a bit more. And that this one along Hanson is just removed.
Right.
So there's no need for planting along this.
But there is, because that elevation difference from where the tree is and the patio is, if I understand correctly, it's about a foot to 18 inches. This is where the tree is, right?
Yes, yeah, and I believe you
So-
said 24 to 30 actually inches, which is fine. So if that needs to be 24 inches tall to retain that tree properly, then that's 24 inches tall.
Right.
So why do we need a setback for planting?
So on these edges, then it's not, the height of retaining is, say, 2 feet, and the little gate here then goes away, right, from what you're saying?
Correct. So exactly. So this retaining wall on this high side may be 3, it might even need to be 3.5 feet to retain that soil.
It's not that much.
I don't believe it's that much either, but it's to retain the
It's 4
soil.
steps, yeah.
And so then coming down here, they might still need a foot at this portion here, but I don't think it should be 3 feet tall this whole way just because it's 3 feet tall up at the top there.
So it's only a foot and therefore that patio is out, open, right? To
Correct.
adjacent.
Correct.
And so I suppose they have a tiny bit of space that they could, instead of a tree, they can plant the hedge there. Instead of these trees, they could plant a hedge here.
Yes.
I want to give them the option to plant those trees too, which I think will be in the south side, there's shading required. And
Yeah.
so hedge plus tree, they don't have the width to do that.
Correct, but it's their design choice, how they choose to landscape this
Right.
wall, right? So if they want to go with trees and not have low hedges, then that's their decision to make. It's not our responsibility to make sure that we have enough space for everything, because then in that turn, we'd be reducing their patio width, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, whereas if we give them the space to do railing, they can get the, like, the railing only needs 8-inch curb at most. And so that, or
Right.
even be a side mounted, so that
Sure.
gives them the space to get their 3 feet little privacy enclosure without being like, feeling like if they only do the trees, then they're pretty much sitting on the sidewalk of Hanson Way, right? Without any kind of enclosure.
correct. And the thing is that they get to choose whether they want box hedges or something that's a little bit more substantial as an enclosure, or whether they want trees and just to have it, allow it to be a little bit more open. The hard part here is that to make a finding for having a railing, a permanent structure that is above a certain amount of height, that's above grade at all, basically, there has to be a legitimate reason that it can't be accomplished by another method, right? And for getting from patio to building, I mean, they could do a slide, but it's, right, they need an access to get from point A to point B.
Right.
So the staircase makes sense why they would need it. Why they would need the railing is the hard part that I'm just not finding a finding for. Now, if you
But
can
I think
convince
that
me,
go-
I'm open
yeah.
to it, but
That
I,
goes back to this building enhancement of having a little semi-private patio out
But
in this area, right?
what would the railing do that the landscape could not?
I mean, if it's I would like them to have the option to do the railing plus the trees. So the trees gives them higher shading, but visually is open, right? The railing is this tall, it's visually open. To get the shading and the privacy with box hedges is going to be 6 feet tall box hedges, right? It's now you're kind of creating a
Green wall.
green wall enclosure, but then you don't have the visual openness to this patio from the street. So the whole activating the street with this patio is killed by putting a 6-foot tall box hedge to make that enclosure.
The argument still stands that activating the street by having a railing between it, dividing it, is still going to kill some of that.
Not necessarily, it's
Activity.
no different than, say, parklets along, restaurant edges. You put a little railing edge, you have visual openness, but you have the slight bit of security.
Okay,
Right.
so looking forward, when the next person down Hanson or the next person down Page Mill says, well, we want to put a big thing down here with a patio and a railing right here. How do we respond to that? Right, we're setting a precedent here to some extent.
Mhm.
So every decision that we make on this has to have a valid reason and a valid argument that could be either repeatable or not repeatable. So the question is, if somebody comes up and says, well, there's a 50-foot design exemption on Hanson Way, we want to put one on, Page Mill, and we want to put a railing right here. What's the conversation at that point?
True, and I think it's partly because Hanson is a secondary street versus Page Mill.
Agreed.
And we are allowing them to have a patio, but then I also don't want to make it so that the patio becomes not like a little private extension to a private property versus a patio that's right off of the sidewalk. It is not a restaurant outdoor seating patio. It is a
Correct.
private patio.
Okay. So what if we do,
If you could say you minimize the amount of concrete.
microphone?
Sorry, what?
Microphone? Oh, it's weird.
is on.
It looks like it's on his button, but this part's not on. So it's disconnected somehow. Yeah, it's like, see the red light at your microphone is not on, so we can't actually hear you. Try pushing your button again. No, push again. Oh, somebody's got to turn yours off. I'm gonna turn you off. Try again. Go ahead now.
Yes?
No,
No?
microphone's not working. We're gonna use- Yeah, there we go.
I don't know what it is.
We got 3 now. He's having a press
Okay,
conference.
now I've got everybody.
There we
Good.
go.
Well, I mean, just to say to minimize the amount of concrete is really what we're asking for. You know, there's a significant, obviously a significant amount of design yet to be done on this very piece. So if we just say to minimize the amount of concrete retaining wall and let them decide what to do from this point on to make this work. And then come back to us in a meeting.
Yeah, I'm thinking at this point, maybe we do an ad hoc. But the hard part is that it's sort of an either or. So again, we've got to have a valid reason for the design exemption, but maybe we say that they're allowed to come back with a potential revision to that Hanson Way fencing,
That'd
as
be
long as
good.
it goes through an ad hoc and that the
Back to an
ARB
ad
is
hoc, right.
comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I would also argue that would have to be a 3-foot maximum height of some type of fencing, and that it'd be less intrusive, but maybe they would need to provide renderings or something like that to validate the need for this front fencing. I would be open to that. So if they can come back and convince us that this front fencing is needed for some type of security, that it would, you know, that landscape would preclude the possibility of having something that's sort of more closely related to the sidewalk, then we'd be open to reviewing that in an ad hoc. Would you be all right with that?
Can we ask the applicant if that's something they want to do?
Or if you just want to nix the wall now and move forward? What's the thumbs up for?
Yes, please.
To the ad hoc?
We would welcome the opportunity to
Perfect.
review that with you.
Okay, friendly amendment by Board Member Adcock for a potential revision of the Hanson Way fencing with 3 foot from maximum height to be reviewed by an ad hoc committee.
Date uncertain.
And, okay, well, we don't have to do date uncertain. We don't really use, we
No,
don't
date
really
uncertain.
I think
use
we
it
can
so much.
approve this project.
Yeah, project now with the ad hoc. So basically, if they want to have the fencing, it's got to come back through an ad hoc. And if you guys decide we're not going to put any fencing along that Hanson Way line, you just move forward. But if you want the fencing along Hanson, you got to come back for an ad hoc and convince us that it's necessary.
Just ask
Fair
them to
enough.
come back for an ad hoc, period.
I mean,
No, because if they say, never mind, we're not going to do the fence, there's no need for them to come back for an ad
Right.
hoc. Right?
Right.
There's no fence, there's no need. But if you want the fence, come back for an ad hoc, we'll have a review on it, and then just a date uncertain, whenever you guys decide to get your renderings together, or whatever documentation that you feel would be necessary to convince us. So yeah, I wanted to make sure Claire's caught up here. Friendly amendment, the applicant may choose to return with potential revision to the Hanson Way railing with 3 foot maximum height, which will be reviewed by an ad hoc committee. Perfect. I'm looking at the. There we go. Okay, sorry, my microphone cut off there for a minute. Everything okay on that end? Get it, Jennifer? So friendly amendment has been accepted as written. Yes. Second still accepts the friendly amendment? Okay, the motion and the second both accept the friendly amendment.
The application. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's something funny with these microphones. If too many of them are on at the same time, they start cutting each other out, I believe, but we're still getting used to them, so. Okay. All right, so we've got a motion, we've got a second. The friendly amendment was approved as part of the motion and the second. Can we get a vote, please?
Yes, Board Member Adcock,
Yes.
Board Member Georgiarth, Board Member Hirsch, Vice Chair Chen,
Yes.
Chair Rosenberg,
Yes,
motion carries 5-0.
thank you very much and congratulations. I look forward to seeing your project built. At this point, we are a little overdue for our break, so we're going to be taking that. Let's do a 10-minute break, please, or say a 13-minute break. We'll return at 11:15, and we'll be discussing agenda. Wait, is that 8 minutes? Do 8 minutes? Let's do 8 minutes. We can get the show on the road. So we'll come back in 8 minutes at 11:15 to discuss item number 3, Architectural Review Board's draft annual report and work plan. Thank you. All right, welcome back. We're a couple minutes behind, but that's all right. We're going to dive into agenda item number 3, Architectural Review Board's draft annual report and work plan. Am I looking at Claire or Jennifer or both? I believe it's Claire.
Yeah, thank you. In the last hearing on this on April 17th, the ARB reviewed a draft of the work plan. There was annotations made during that meeting to the work plan. Those have now been incorporated and finalized in the draft presented before you. And then there was direction to provide some additional pictures related to the annual report, and so those have been added into the annual report. That's really the only change that was made by staff since you last reviewed. One thing I do want to note is that there was recent direction from council to consider the ARB, have the ARB consider review of the wireless. Wireless standards, and so we would recommend that that be added to the work plan.
Wasn't it already?
It can be included under one of the existing
Yeah.
goals that
Yeah.
is, working on ordinance updates, et cetera. So it wouldn't be a separate goal, but our recommendation would be to add some language, just referencing that as an example of the type of work that could be done.
It wasn't specifically called out. Under project goal 2 is where we would recommend adding something along these lines. Staff's recommendation, because this is not resourced at the moment, would be to add to the lower priority rather than the high priority under project goal 2.
So under project goal 2, lower priority, it would read, including what review of wireless
Standards.
standards. Okay, let's go ahead and add that. Sounds good, unless there's any complaint.
No complaint, but I guess you've dug up all of the old stuff that we talked about. This went over a whole period of time that we were fussing around with the wireless issues. So did you come up with any drawings that we had sort of looked at and approved?
So this would be a separate effort. What was brought to council was a interim ordinance, a temporary ordinance to modify the process for certain types of wireless facilities, specifically the tier 2 and tier 3 in the public right of way, to have an ARB review. Exactly what that looks like is something the staff is working on right now to get that when possible within the shot clock timelines that are required by federal law. So it's going to be a nuanced process that we will implement as best as possible. In addition to that, there is further discussion with ARB that was specifically directed by council, but as stated, it's unresourced at this time. And so the exact timing of when that comes back to ARB with the other priorities is something that'll have to be considered in the coming months.
I guess my question was, were there any drawings?
Not specifically additional guidelines, no.
Okay. In other words, the companies themselves have not been submitting drawings to us for prototypical ways in which they are putting their equipment on the poles, which is what we were really that plus the transformer issues in the street, which I think never happened, and happily so.
Yeah, we just have the materials that are part of the applications that have been submitted and reviewed from previous applications.
I just want to be clear, we can't really discuss the wireless standards, which was not part of the noticed, part. This is just work plan right now.
Just the work plan as
Just
to what
what is being considered in the work plan. That's the item before us. So we can't really discuss details of the wireless standards and what is going to be reviewed and the details of that as part of this.
Yeah, the recommendation is just to add a note to the existing draft work plan to acknowledge that review of the wireless standards and process is what has been directed by council.
Okay. I mean, what we looked at, I thought a lot was the actual placement and scale and detail of the materials on the poles themselves. And so if, you know, that was a couple of boards ago, you know, so most of the people on this board wouldn't know what these things are going to look like, which is,
So this will be a future discussion.
okay. No more. I dare not.
So if that's it, do we,
I
any
just
other
have
comments or edits?
So, yeah, a couple of questions. I know we've kind of discussed this quite a bit already. So, but on project goal number 3, I was just curious on the high priority, there's modifications of south of forest area, coordinated area plan, subject to development standard. Has that, I'm just curious, that is high priority. So does that mean there is a coordinated area plan that's being developed that will come before us in the near term?
It's not a new coordinated area plan. It's creating from the coordinated area plan objectives, standards, and I'm not sure the timeline.
Yeah, I can jump in on that item. So there is an implementation program in the housing element that describes reviewing the SOFA regulations and making those objective where possible. It's also tied to a potential for allowing additional housing in that area. And so that is something, I believe the deadline for that is the end of 2026. So exactly what the timeline is for when we start that is not yet determined. It is not yet started or assigned.
Okay.
I hate to be the one to bring this up again, but on this particular one, which is the streamlining of objective standards, is that the one we're talking about, number 3?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be a good idea to provide relevant adjustments to the objective standards for submission to the planning department, or for discussion with the planning department, for the council, further council approval in light of the council approved modifications to the zoning? In other words, they have made some significant modifications, you know, El Camino, of course, you know, is that specific area. And the heights have changed quite significantly. And so we don't have any real objective standards, certainly not any of the relative elevations and drawings and that describe those. We don't have that in the objective standards. We've stopped the building height at a certain dimension there and cut it off, and there is no description that applies.
Yeah.
So, and there are other aspects to the objective standards that are not really as applicable based on what our previous agreements were, previous decisions were.
Yeah, I mean, the council did make a few modifications to objective standards for projects that choose to use that El Camino focus area. One of which addresses how they want the step back to be provided for taller buildings along El Camino in particular. Beyond that, you're right that we don't have direction. The reason this is, you know, I think staff feels that we would love to come back with some modifications. There was a lot of time spent on that. This is listed as a low priority because council hasn't formally directed us to put our resources toward that, and we have a full workload of other priorities.
Okay.
So
That's a good point, but it's a missing element. Any other comments from the
I
board
have a
about that?
question on project goal number 4 in terms, another one, high priority San Antonio Road area plan. I'm just curious of status on if that, I feel like I'm asking the same question over and over, but yeah.
That's fine. I can provide a status update on that. The San Antonio Road Area Plan has gotten going. We are forming the community advisory group for that effort, and we do expect to be coming for initial discussions with each of the boards and commissions this fall. So likely in September. I have to be careful because we also have a number of different public hearings and outreach events for the downtown housing plan as well. And I don't want to confuse the exact dates for that. But there will be discussions on both of those plans with council and in the fall. And I believe we've got San Antonio Road Area Plan with ARB as well in that timeframe.
Oh, please go ahead, sorry.
Is it possible, like, just as, you know, this is our next year's work plan, right? Like what other either area plans or even like, you know, CalAV signage thing that was brought to us not that long ago that are likely to come to our review in the, you know, next 6 months? Is there like any kind of broader timeline of any of those?
I don't know that we've got any additional details at this time. You know, we've identified the California Avenue streetscape improvements as one of the priority items under this goal. There are other things, for example, we do anticipate at your next meeting, you will be looking at the initial diagrams for the Cubberley master plan. So you know, we bring these as they are ready. At this point, I don't think we have any additional specific details.
By the way, I'm on the Cubberley 200 people board there. You know, we meet, and so I'm very thankful that you're doing that. You know, at this date, it's going to be very important for us to see that as it progresses. Thanks for that.
Yeah, on that note, it seems like you're involved with the Cubberley project. Like, is the ARB involved with any of these other plans, or are we just reviewing things, you know, in this setting, or are we actively participating?
I can jump in initially. So with each of these area plans, we have a number of different levels of involvement. We have staff who are managing the process, usually multi-year process. In each case, we do have experts, consultants who are part of the team preparing information and studies, doing public outreach on behalf of the city. And with city staff. And then as there are materials that are ready for input from our different boards and commissions, we do bring those forward for discussion with you, as well as an opportunity for the public to share their thoughts. In addition, we often have community and technical advisory committees made up of different interested parties and staff to advise throughout the process. And we try and also provide ongoing information online and have interested parties email so that we can send updates as new materials are available. And so we do at different phases of the project like to come to the Architectural Review Board for your expert perspective, particularly on things like site planning and design implications. For things like transportation, we might go to Planning and Transportation Commission or other city boards or commissions for advice on those elements.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And thank you for that clarification. So there's not like one of us assigned to each of these plans that are involved. Good.
No, that, there isn't, but Kendra was on the downtown and I was invited to fill your role on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, we do for the community advisory group. We do endeavor to have a representative from the ARB and the Planning Commission, as well as other applicable boards and commissions on that group, so
Mhm.
that as there are more discussion level work on those, that perspective is reflected, and then that member can then report out as part of a future PTC discussion of the item.
So we have these different things
ARB.
assigned to the different board members? Or,
Like the San Antonio Road. Yeah. Sorry. So like the San Antonio Road area plan, there's not one specific person assigned to it,
Well,
but
there is, we have a member who is joining on the community advisory group, just
but
like
we
you
we
served.
volunteer though. It's not like
Yes.
assigned. It's not like we
Correct.
give you.
And that,
Correct.
I
It's
was
an
just
app.
informed that I was part of the
That is-
advisory group for the San Antonio.
Yeah, so board member Chen applied
Good.
to be a part of that group and will bring the ARB perspective. But when we are looking for feedback from the ARB, we will bring it for a full discussion.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or adjustments? Do we need to make a motion on this?
No,
David, go ahead.
let me just look. Well, I was wondering, because there were some items that were sort of part of the previous years. Have you looked at that when creating this one?
Yeah, so part of the work plan was basically, we always take last year's and we sort of update it and move things forward. And sometimes things that we had hoped to get through don't necessarily get tackled in the timeline that we would hope. And sometimes they just take longer than expected, so they get rolled over to the following year. But yeah, everything from last year was definitely looked at and reviewed for this work plan moving forward.
Okay.
Is there anything in particular of concern?
No, it was what was going to be attached to it that I was wondering why we did it the way we did. It was more, this is to go to the council, and it includes all of the projects that we voted on for our display or our awards.
Not all, but it's, no, so it includes some of our examples that we felt were visually representative of the ARB's impact. It's not necessarily about the architectural review awards, so much it is about highlighting specific projects and ARB's impact on it.
So I just felt that some of these illustrations really sort of didn't work. So for example, if you go to the photographs, starting with Encina
Mhm.
that was certainly a good one. That worked fine.
Right.
The next one, which was the back of Encina,
Yep.
didn't seem to work at all because the drawings don't look different. The photographs don't look any different from one to the other.
Yeah, had we asked to include those as well? Because I thought we were just going to do the front facades of Encina and skip the back ones.
Removal of those could be part of your recommendation. We'd be happy to remove those if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, I see what David's saying. It's just not emphasizing enough of what we were looking to emphasize there. So I'd be inclined to strike those last two
Right.
images. They're not necessary anyway.
Right. So actually that whole page, the Waverly drawing there, really how you can't really see anything significant difference from one drawing to the other.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But we are trying to show projects that we've had some impact on, but those
Yeah.
two renderings are really far too close to be necessary. And since we have the following two images, I'd say strike the first two renderings of Waverly,
Right.
not showing what we want them to show.
Even the 640 Waverly doesn't really do much for me. Maybe.
Yeah, but when we get down to the elevations on the next page, when you turn the page, that's pretty notable. It's just, it's hard to see in the renderings. You're sort of like, spot the difference, there's some bushes.
Yeah, so
but on
on
the-
Wa-
this
on
one,
on the
these are-
Waverly one, it just seems that if we put in anything and we didn't put in the front of it, the side view isn't going to be all that significant to show
Is that why we had?
I
these
was going to
lines?
say the same thing. I think, going back to Encina, yes, the front is more impactful. The difference is greater and it is the front, right?
Mhm.
So that we could strike, but for 640 Waverly, the side we had impact, but it is a side that is not so exciting. Whereas the front, I mean, to the architects could, I think like they did a really nice job. We didn't have a
Yeah.
whole lot of comments, some minor modifications. So, bless you. Do we show it as, this is the project versus showing a difference, right? So is it just on next to the elevation comparison, there's just an image of the final?
one image.
Yeah, one image without showing the difference.
That's a nice way to go about that, to show basically the two elevations side by side. And if we could even put the third in the same line or the following line, just have the final design shown.
Right.
Because you're right that the previous and final are not so dramatically different, but it is an impact that ARB has had on this project specifically. But that might be a nice way to go about that.
So just to confirm, what we're hearing is to remove the two initial proposal images. Sam, if you could go to the next page.
Yeah, keep both of those.
So we'd remove the initial proposal for 640 waiver, or sorry, let me start with 70 Encina. Remove both of those and remove the first one of the Waverly Street project. And then on the next page, you would retain, again, the final design, not the initial proposal. Oh, both of
I would
those.
keep
We
both and then add
have three
in,
side by side.
yeah, add
Yeah,
in that
maybe
final
the-
design image there.
Okay.
Like a 3-image thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they
Yeah,
get a little
yeah.
bit smaller, but
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then on El Camino, it's kind of, that one is a similar issue here, but the the rear elevation, I don't know. I think maybe it's the side elevation that showed the front staircase and the change in materials was the important one.
I think the front, sorry, are you talking about the 3265 El Camino? I think that the front renderings show,
330, yeah.
yeah, 3265 El Camino.
Yeah.
Those
Mhm.
show it's just funny because they sort of had to zoom out in the renderings, so they don't look quite as dramatically different as they would if they were at the same zoom out, if that makes sense, right? Like it's tricking the eye a little that the one on the right is it's much taller. So I almost, but I think that this is showing exactly what we did, is that we allowed for a full extra height of space because the use of this project was so important. But yeah, it's funny because the renderings are a little bit deceptive in terms of the scale.
Yeah.
It's like the one on the left should be shrunk down just a touch or something, like, because you can't
Yeah.
see that extra
We
height difference
could,
quite as well.
we could reduce the size of the left image so that, the palm trees are similar in size
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
and I think the back could go away.
Well, I would disagree. I think that that's very clearly showing that there's a huge height difference and that we, emphasize the back a little bit differently. So I would say that, I would argue respectfully that the back images are helping to clarify the renderings. I wish they were on the same page,
we
but
don't-
that's a formatting thing.
Mhm.
We don't have it here, but what happened here is that the other staircase, which you can see in the background, right?
Mhm.
We do on that staircase change the material similarly to this stair in the back.
Correct.
So those two kind of relate to each other. But we don't have that drawing
So
here.
could we maybe remove this and have the other two final design of the two stairs
Yes,
as part of the story? Because the comparison is not as necessary as showing the final design.
not for the 4 to 5
Right.
stories, but rather showing the change that we made, which
Yeah.
was the
It's
staircase.
the northwest side, right, is what we're
Mhm.
looking to add here.
Add one other one in. and show the relationship of the two staircases as a
Yeah.
significant change. Yep.
If I can be a little nitpicky, I also have sort of a formatting item. I hate that the project jumps a page, right? So if we can do a page break at the start of each project and maybe even have a title. So like right here, it says 45, right? That should go there, except for that's actually not where that is, right? It's, sorry, deleting, come on, delete. So this is your start of the new project. There should be some sort of header here and then showing the images and then showing the text. But like the concept that half of this project is on one page and half is on another page. I know it's a small formatting thing, but it is sort of complicated to follow. Like, is this information for this or is it for that? Right. So I think it would be helpful to clarify that to page break between projects.
Right. And on that same token, like the ARB awards starts on a new page. Because it kind of like flows with the example images. So
Yeah.
that would be good.
Yeah, we can take that direction.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I mean, the next page, which was I think they all work well. The next 4 next pages, including the Fabian Way
And just a page break there for the ARB awards. Like,
page break,
Wilson said.
right, at that point. I think the award
they're all so
pages
pretty.
are very good.
They're so pretty. They're all such good looking buildings.
Mhm. Otherwise, it's good.
I think I hear a motion coming from the end over there.
Motion to approve with the minor edits we just discussed.
I'll second that. Can we get a vote, please?
Yes, Board Member Hirsch,
Yes,
Board Member Jojak,
Yes.
Board Member Adcock,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chin,
Yes.
Chair Rosenberg,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Beautiful. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4 that is not noted as number 4 in the packet, but was updated online. Approval of the minutes of the Draft Architectural Review Board meeting minutes for May 1st, 2025. Do we have any comments, adjustments, edits from the board?
I have just a minor one, but it was in a meeting where I wasn't here. So I could be wrong. I'm on page 53.
Packet page 53.
Third from the bottom paragraph. The sentence that reads, Georgia Leung, landscape architect, added the bike parking fencing was intended to be a chain link and the back, I think one would connect, not back or would connect is, I think, what was intended.
Sorry, where on page 53 is this?
Third paragraph, third from the bottom. Right in the middle of the paragraph, there's a sentence that starts Georgia Leung, landscape architect. Added the bike parking fence was intended to be chain link and the back one, I think not back or.
Nice catch. I read right past that one.
I have a comment to make on page 55. Under the paragraph that starts Board Member Bolte. And the third line, it says, carried including the storage areas. That was really the corridor proposed seating areas.
Sorry, say that again. The second
It says
paragraph.
carried inside, including the storage areas. Third line.
Got it. So, and the second paragraph on the page that begins, Board Member Balte supported Chair Rosenberg's comments.
Right.
Okay, then to
Says
the third line.
storage areas. I was actually talking about the corridor recessed seating areas.
So Board Member Hirsch felt less inclined to make the exterior changes being suggested. and the exterior changes being suggested, and that it would be carried inside, including the, instead of the word storage, what word would you like?
Corridor
Corridor,
recessed seating areas.
recessed seating. Okay. Oh, so it would read including the recessed seating areas within the corridor. So change the word storage to recessed seating. Can we make that amendment?
Yes, got it.
Seems to be a typo on the fifth bullet point, probably means fencing along residential.
Yes, instead
Yes.
of fending, it should be fencing. Thank you. Now, for the most part, we try to not over nitpick typos, but at the same time, we do want to make sure that these are accurate for posterity. So anything else comes up, please let us know.
Particularly if it changes the meaning.
Yeah, exactly. If it changes the me, yeah. Fending, fend for yourselves. All right, with that, I move to approve these minutes as noted, with the markups as discussed. If I can get a second.
Second.
Second,
Got 2 seconds. Pick one. She was faster. All right, and then can we get a vote, please?
Yes, Board Member Jojar,
Yes.
Board Member Adcock,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
yes.
Vice Chair Chen,
Yes.
Chair Rosenberg.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you very much. Any board member questions, comments, announcements, future meetings, or agenda items? We've got 2 board members that are going to be absent next week, correct? I hope you.
At the
I'm
next
assuming
meeting.
Travels. Hopefully you guys enjoy those travels. That is the difficulty of joining the board right in the summer, is that it's like, you don't know, you've got travel plans already made. So I hope you enjoy your travels. I may or may not be attending via Zoom next time, just to give everyone the heads up. So, but I will be here and hopefully in person. So just giving that announcement. And then I believe next one is not my last meeting as chair. It's the one following.
Yes, we will need a meeting where all members are present in order to do the chair, vice chair
Okay.
elections.
So on August 7th, we'll be having those elections, and that will be my last sitting meeting as chair, which will be very exciting. Okay, anything else? Should be fiery and spicy, I'm sure, and go out with a bang. Anything else? All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all so much.